Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm, and you are watching What If Naruto Was Given a Second Chance as Obito. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Now, wasting no more time, let's start the story.
War. Naruto lived through those final 10 years of his life. Naruto believed that the war was over after he had vanquished Madara and Obito, and that he could return to Konoha to collect 40 bowls of the food of the gods. He was worn out. In order for Naruto to complete the task, he wanted to grieve for his friend Sasuke, who was hit. Unfortunately, it was not intended to be. Ironically, the conclusion of the shortest conflict, the Fourth Shinobi World War, ushered in the longest conflict ever fought, the Fifth Shinobi World War. The Confederate of the Small Dominion was formed by smaller nations like Aim and Haze to oppose the remnants of the Allied Shinobi force. The five great Shinobi nations were to become part of the Confederate Empire. So, when Iwa and Kumo were destroyed, news of the Fifth War broke out the night after the Allied Shinobi force was gradually returning home to rest and grieve for the dead. Because of the chaotic chain of command caused by panic, the Confederates were also able to attack Suna. The Allied Shinobi forces were compelled to withdraw through Fire Country to Kiri since they had already suffered significant losses in the previous conflict. Before the Allied force could launch a successful counteroffensive to begin driving the Confederates out of Fire Country, weeks passed. Before AIM created chakra rifles, which sparked the chakra arms revolution, it was succeeding. There are two primary parts that go into making chakra rifles. A small amount of the user's elemental chakra could be stored in chakra batteries, which are storage seals that would enable the seal to continuously replenish the chakra. As a result, even with limited reserves, civilians could fight just as effectively. The shape barrel is the second component. It featured seals that enabled shape change to produce chakra spheres. The end product was an effective weapon that dispersed various elemental chakras miles across the battlefield in the form of coin-sized mini Rasengan. Like bullets. The shape barrel took a long time to cool, which was the weapon's only drawback. Soon after, the meaning of war was altered. Whoever controlled the most trenches for the longest period of time would gradually gain the upper hand in the trench warfare. Chakra rifles were pushed forward by both sides until they were the only weapon of choice for shinobi. As rifles improved to shoot farther and faster, weapons like swords and shuriken were rendered useless. Everyone loses something during a war. Naruto's innocence in this instance. Shikamaru instilled lessons in his mind about effective killing techniques and war tactics. Naruto killed hundreds of soldiers in a trench voluntarily for the first time. Although it hurt to do this, he justified it by saying that it was required to safeguard his priceless people. His father, after all, had done the same with sorrow. On the evening of October 10th, Naruto attacked the outer portion of the trench with a group of 10 shinobi known as Squad Dominion. He used wind chakra to silence two watchers in the trees with his trusty kunai, then proceeded north through the trench, destroying any enemies his squad came across. Squad Dominion moved swiftly and silently through the sandy trenches. The mission didn't take a turn for the worse until an Iwa shinobi was killed by an explosion in front of him. What a waste! When the artillery round exploded in the middle of the squad, killing everyone but Naruto, he swiftly rolled away. He hurried to his feet and began to wave signs to disperse the dust. Futon. Daitopa, Great Breakthrough, Wind Release. He realizes he has fallen into a trap and dashes forward into the sea of enemies, pulling a kunai in his mouth. He was going to take as many of the bastards as he could, in true Zabuza Momochi fashion, if he was going to fall today. I need to get some rest. In order to create a second front against the Confederates, Squad Dominion successfully cleaned the western trenches at Suna, according to a report released by the Allied Shinobi Force on October 11th. Squad Dominion's listing as Kia was the price. A white-clad figure who appeared to be floating with a black staff and 6 round balls floating around him watched all of this through a portal. This man was the god of shinobi, the sage of 6 paths, and the legendary Hagoromo Otsutsuki. And now the purple-eyed man watched his reincarnation Asura, his last descendant in the living world, from limbo. And the man was currently watching a scene in which he felt the greatest sense of pride, seeing the young Uzumaki, whom he had been watching since he was a baby, develop into a strong shinobi who could even surpass himself. If the boy's life had not been marred by injustice and misfortune, he had the divine potential to grow into one of the strongest people the world had ever seen. He didn't blame the Uzumaki for their lack of strength, though, because if it had been someone else, they would have already perished. The deity thought to himself, reflecting on the case of Naruto Uzumaki, this boy has such potential. It's almost frightening. But I do find myself curious as to how powerful he would become if he were alive. He closed his eyes and reflected on the young Uzumaki, who had repeatedly exceeded all of his expectations. The boy felt proud of himself because he felt like his real successor, even though it was startling how quickly and far he had come. He might not have the strength of his other descendants, but he could have if the conditions were right. "I've made up my mind. But it's the boy's decision," he muttered, and a portal as black as the void appeared with a hand shift. As they gradually solidified, they circled in front of him. The body of a Naruto Uzumaki wearing a white kimono with 9 black magatama on the back was what was created. When Naruto opened his eyes, he felt a chill run up his spine. He slowly looked in the direction of the chill and saw a figure floating with his legs crossed. Nagato's eyes were exactly like the man's purple ones. Propping himself up on his feet, Naruto grunted. He thus passed away once more. It's funny. I assumed it would be more painful. He pondered the appearance of hell. Having killed hundreds during the war, he was already aware that he was not a saint. As he looked around, he noticed that the figure in white in front of him was illuminated by darkness. I'm hoping my friends won't be upset with me because I'm dying. The young blonde man raised an eyebrow at the figure before realizing the man had no malicious intent. Hello young Uzumaki, it is a pleasure to finally meet you. Face to face, the deity said. He assumed he would be meeting the Shinigami, who wasn't overly pleased with him for escaping the first time, so he asked, yeah nice to meet you too, but who are you? But for some reason, he thought this man could provide the answers to his unanswered questions because he exuded an air of unachievable wisdom that no one else could possibly hope to attain. Hagoromo Otsutsuki is my name. Naruto's eyes widened. He was well aware that the creature before him was the planet's first shinobi. Madara's evil villain monologue was always filled with rants about him. I see. But aren't I supposed to see the Shinigami cause I'm dead? Unless this is the afterlife. Well, that all depends on you actually. You see, I have been watching you my descendant and I feel proud of your perseverance through your hard life. And that is why I will allow you something no one else in history of mankind has ever gotten, and that is a second chance. A new life where you can start over, although not in your world or dimension due to your soul signature truly leaving the plane of existence. Another chance? A fresh start? He had been fighting for a few years, but it felt like he had been fighting his entire life, and it was almost too good to be true. He was more worn out from fighting non-stop than anyone else could have imagined, constantly having to defend friends and himself from the Confederacy. However, he occasionally wished he could escape the stress that everyone placed on him during his genin days with Sasuke. I have yet to express my gratitude to Sasuke for giving up his life to save mine. Even though it hurts to be unable to see my family and friends again, he is willing to give me another chance, just like on our first mission. I would love nothing more than to have another chance. The Sage of Six Paths grinned as he saw the boy considering his offer. He made up his mind. He said, So Uzumaki, what is your decision? In a grandfatherly tone. After closing his eyes, Naruto sighed slightly. He glanced up at the deity slowly before uttering the words that would alter his life forever. Additionally, for the better he said, I accept, which caused the sage in front of him to nod slightly in agreement that he understood his choice. Naruto was enveloped in an aura that encircled the sage and encircled him like a cocoon. Very good then. Best be on your way then Naruto, or Obito Uchiha, and best of luck. My child. Naruto was sucked into a portal and lost consciousness before he could utter another word. He was last seen smiling by the figure of the Sage of Six Paths. As he gradually turned into particles, the deity sighed in relief at his departure. His final descendant has now taken up the mantle. He smiled at the idea and gradually dwindled away, prepared to join his brother Hamura and the rest of his clan in the afterlife. Kakashi and Rin witnessed their teammate Obito being buried beneath an earth jutsu in a different reality. While Rin watched the rock pile where Obito was buried, he unleashed his newest jutsu, Raiden. Chidori, lightning release. 1,000 birds, on the Iwa shinobi in a fit of rage. There was nothing to do either. Rin ran to the pile of rocks and began moving as many of them as she could, despite the cuts on her hands, while Kakashi and Minato cleaned up the remaining shinobi. Kakashi's first hand was clenched as he said solemnly, Rin, stop, he's gone. Obito is gone. Rin sank to the ground, her lifeless eyes staring at the pile as she sobbed in pain. No, it can't be true, it can't. After dragging his 2 students back to Konoha, Minato merely bowed and paused for a moment for not protecting his students. We have to go now. We have to return back to Konoha and tell the Hokage what happened here. With tears in their eyes, Team 7 took another look back at the spot where Obito's body lay. They walked and turned. Rest in peace, Obito. It's going to be a long walk, Minato thought. Both Naruto's and Obito's personalities were fused together when their 26-year-old souls connected with each other. However, Naruto's personality gradually surpassed Obito's because he lived longer and had more life experience. As the essence of the Uchiha and Senju descendant merged again, there was silence for a few minutes in the space between the material and spiritual realms. This made it possible for the Sage of Six Paths' Yin and Yang, which had previously been split up in his descendants, to come together and create pieces of Shinju chakra. The Jinchuriki of the Jubi is the remaining chakra from Hagoromo. It gradually faded in Obito's buried body after the souls had completed blending. Slowly, the chakra that accompanied the soul began to merge with the 361 Tenketsus and the chakra pathway system. Shinju chakra was gradually created by the body recycling the remnants of Obito's chakra. The body began to gradually absorb the new, alien chakra. Skin cells, muscle cells, organ cells, immune cells, and blood cells were all destroyed because they rejected the foreign material. To create stronger and more resilient cells, the new chakra was injected into the remaining cells. Obito's body would be twitching a lot underground if someone were to see it during this process. They would painfully hear several bones pop and then reassemble. They would observe that skin fragments would fall off rapidly and be replaced by lighter skin. They would observe that Obito's black hair had grown longer and had a few gray strands. The most striking aspect, though, was how Obito's body was gradually growing wider and longer, giving him the appearance of a real adolescent member of the Uchiha clan. Two crimson Sharingan eyes opened and glowed in the darkness as Uchiha and Senju fused. Then, two Tomo became three. Before becoming the Mangekyo Sharingan, three stretched triangles evenly spaced around the pupil that each curve at the top around the eye to form a circle. The Sharingans were rapidly spinning in the darkness. When Naruto and Obito noticed a distortion in space, their eyes began to bleed. The Shinju chakra hummed as it flowed and made contact with the eyes as the subterranean body started to incorporate chakra into its dojutsu. Obito spoke a single word that would turn him into an S-class Konoha shinobi and save his life innumerable times. Kamui, the god's authority. Obito's body then whirled and was drawn into a dimension. After completing a third of his paperwork, Hiruzen Sarutobi sighed once more. Since Konoha needed more troops on the ground to maintain the impasse with Iwa, he simply approved a plan to further invest in the academy in order to hire more teachers and allow students to graduate earlier. At this pace, I question whether Hashirama Sensei's dream will ever come true. After 3 wars, there is still no indication that they will end. There were several reasons why the third Hokage detested war. He had to send people on missions even though he knew they wouldn't come back. In order to foster future teamwork skills, he was compelled to send young academy students to their deaths rather than assigning them to D-rank missions. In order for the village to survive the war in a battle of attrition, he had to reorient the economy away from assisting new enterprises and repairing infrastructure and toward producing explosives and weapons and accumulating money. Above all, though, he had to complete a great deal of paperwork. A great deal. Compared to his usual size, the White Tower of Doom on his desk was 5 times larger. On his Hokage mantle, Hiruzen vowed that this tower grew larger each time he turned his head away. He wished he possessed the Uchiha's secret power to light anything on fire. No one would then accuse him of evading paperwork, correct? A knock on the door caught his attention. He straightened his stance to make himself appear like Konoha's leader, then called for whoever had knocked to let them in. When he noticed that Team Minato had arrived without one of its members, his heart fell. Given that both students' eyes were red, he was already aware of what had transpired. Even Minato didn't appear to be as happy as he usually was. Hiruzen yelled, "Team Minato, report," inquiring about the mission's progress. Later, they could grieve. It had to be done, even though he didn't enjoy it. He cursed his sensei once more for assigning him the position before passing away in splendor. He couldn't even recall the last time he spent more than 15 minutes practicing his jutsu before being compelled to complete paperwork by his secretary. Hokage Sama, Team Minato was sent to Kusagakure to destroy the Kanabi Bridge. I transferred the leadership of the mission to one Jonin Kakashi Hitaki and headed to the front lines to distract the Iwa forces. There, I eliminated the surviving shinobi platoon and tried to link up with my team. Genin Rin Nohara was kidnapped in my absence. Both Jonin Kakashi Hitaki and Chunin Obito Uchiha followed and found her in a cave. The Iwa used a Doden, Iwayado Kuzushi, Earth Release, Rock Lodging Destruction, to cause a cave-in. Chunin Obito Uchiha pushed Jonin Kakashi Hitaki away from a falling rock and was buried in the cave-in. Jonin Kakashi Hitaki and myself eliminated the rest of the Iwa shinobi. Minato spoke in a monotone, saying he tried to cover up his feelings. Chunin Obito Uchiha sacrificed his life for his teammates under the ideals of the Will of Fire and is listed currently as Kia. Hiruzen inhaled deeply, then turned to face the other members of Team Minato before continuing. Good job for completing the objective, Team Minato. Have a month off to cool down and rest. Chunin Obito Uchiha will be added to the memorial stone for the sacrifices he made for Konoha. You are dismissed. Quietly, Team Minato departed the Hokage office. The Kage sighed once more and then peered out the window. To calm himself, he put his pipe in his mouth and breathed in the scent of tobacco. He made himself finish his paperwork after a moment of silence for bringing another child to his demise. Naruto felt like he was being drawn into a straw when he used Kamui, authority of the gods, and then he appeared in his pocket dimension. The dimension appeared to be a collection of blue cube-shaped platforms floating in void space. He took a seat in a meditative position on a cube. In order for the personality to completely integrate within his head, he needed to absorb all of the body's memories, even though he had pieces of Obito's memories and knew what had happened when the Sage of Six Paths sent him to this dimension. Naruto sat with a severe headache for hours, resembling the moment when all 1000 Kage Bushin deactivated simultaneously and gave him the most intense migraine he had ever experienced. Naruto experienced all of Obito's brief life through the memories. His parents were unknown to him. He was consistently disregarded by his peers. In order to be respected and remembered, he desired to be Hokage. For the first time, he had a crush on a person his age who didn't reject his dream. Everyone didn't take him seriously because he was the class clown. He desired for Kakashi to recognize his talent and skill. When he attempted to confess to Rin, he discovered that she was celebrating Kakashi's conversion to Jonin. He sensed the rage at Kakashi for not trying to save Rin. He was thrilled to find Rin alive. Since Kakashi was a friend, he instinctively pushed him away. He feared that he would pass away and be forgotten by the world. As he processed the memories, he became aware of how much Team Minato and Team 7 were alike. Obito's resemblance to me is frightening. Rin and Sakura were the medics who maintained the equilibrium between us, while Kakashi and Sasuke were the cool, no-it-all kids with a stick up their asses. We wanted to be noticed. There was even the same love triangle, but it was no longer there. Naruto lost his dream of becoming Hokage and became disillusioned with the world after going through the two worst Shinobi World Wars in history. He succeeded on the battlefield for every reason he desired to be a Hokage. He was already recognized as a hero in both wars. He held the rank of Jonin Commander and led soldiers into combat on the front lines of the Fifth World Shinobi War. Shinobi from various villages taught him new devastating jutsu, which enabled him to kill hundreds of people, proving that killing was no longer an issue. Above all, why would you want to spend the entire day in a room filling out paperwork? It is exhausting enough to write a mission summary. No, Naruto had a different dream in mind. He desired to have children. He desired a companion who would be there for him no matter what and love him without conditions. When he got home exhausted, he wanted someone to meet. He wanted to spoil kids and teach them ninja techniques. Above all, though, he wished to avoid solitude. And he has a way to do it thanks to the Sage of Six Paths. After experiencing many hardships in the trenches, where death was all around, he began to learn more about women and discovered that he liked stronger, more independent, mature women. Sakura was his childhood crush, but he moved on. After a while, he found it extremely annoying to return to rest only to hear Sakura ranting about how unfair the world is. At first, he was happy when he had to calm her because of the amount of death she had to endure in the hospital. Additionally, there were the 2 occasions she punched him, only to land in the center of a shooting range. Yes, he had to learn the hard way. He would occasionally borrow Kakashi's Ichiraku books, and while doing so, he would covertly gaze at older women like Anko and Hana in order to avoid Ba-chan sending him to the hospital. After witnessing Ero Sennin being struck by a genjutsu of Lee and Guy hugging while yelling about youth for an entire week, Kurenai was the only person he didn't look at. Ero Sennin was unable to look at another man for longer than 5 seconds without feeling sick. He became more sympathetic to the Uchiha the more he sifted through Obito's memories. Like him, he was an orphan who aspired to become Hokage in order to avoid being forgotten by the general public. The only person who recognized him was a girl on his team, and he enjoyed pulling practical jokes. The number of parallels really freaked him out. He could understand Obito's decision to portray the antagonist. But perhaps I can win Obito's and my desired love in this life. I possess the requisite abilities and aptitude. Ero Sennin did teach me how to seduce, after all, in case I ever needed information from brothels. Naruto used the remainder of the week in his pocket dimension to train in order to acclimate to his body after completing 12 years worth of memories. Beginning with taijutsu, Naruto began practicing his freeform style, which was developed by fighting various taijutsu styles, such as Lee's strong fist and Hyuga's juken. To adjust to having a smaller reach and incorporate any reflexes Obito had acquired during his lifetime, Naruto would battle Kage Bunshin for a few hours. After learning a jutsu, Naruto would instruct 50 Kage Bushin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Technique, to practice it. With the exception of fire, he struggled with most of the jutsu he had learned, but he trained them nonetheless because he needed his body to become accustomed to using all 5 elemental natures with ease. He had to practice controlling his chakras as well. In relation to their chakra levels, Obito and he had respectable chakra control, but it was terrible. He was launched 50 feet into another cube and struck his head when he took the initial step to practice wall walking on a cube. He discovered after a few attempts that his chakra was more powerful and dense than ever, resembling a Biju. The Biju, who possessed enormous chakra reservoirs and flawless chakra control, did deserve his recognition. Based on the information Madara provided when he incorporated Hashirama's cells into his own body, he thought that it might have been the result of fusing the Uchiha and Senju bloodlines. Madara Teme is something I adore. His tirades about evil villains are more entertaining than those of Iruka Sensei. In any case, Naruto was resolved to regain control over his chakras. They ran up the wall and collided with the cube with a fresh generation of clones. Before there was any progress and Naruto could battle several clones on walls, this would continue for several hours. Since his previous life had terrible chakra control and Obito himself hadn't studied much about it, he was unable to practice genjutsu and would wait until he returned to Konoha. He recalled that Sasuke had mentioned a library in the Uchiha compound that had been destroyed during the war and that he would search there for information on how to use the Sharingan to practice genjutsu. Since Naruto was talking about Sharingan, he also needed to determine whether using the Mangekyo Sharingan excessively would cause him to lose his sight. Sasuke, Itachi, Madara, and Izuna demonstrated how excessive use could cause blindness and had to swap eyes for the eternal version. However, neither Obito nor his sensei ever displayed that. Since he had no family members with the upgraded Sharingan to trade with, he wanted to make sure he wouldn't go blind, even though their Mangekyo Sharingan powers were obviously very different. However, he would employ the base Sharingan when needed because Naruto discovered the hard way that he had to use every tool at his disposal, regardless of how much he liked the overpowered dojutsu that existed. Naruto made a list of his priorities after his training days were over. First and foremost, he had to return to Konoha. A large portion of his suspicion would be shaped by the memories he acquired from Obito. The Mangekyo Sharingan would describe his enhanced chakra levels and his safe escape. Additionally, his near-death experience would explain why he took his training more seriously and didn't have a childlike personality. He sent himself back to where he died, congratulating himself on a job well done. Naruto took a route to follow after robbing the deceased Iwa shinobi of clothing and supplies in the hopes of finding a clue as to how to get to Konoha. After all, with trenches and level areas, the terrain was very different 50 years ago. Obito was also more preoccupied with matters of importance, like Rin's angelic sculpture. Yes, I do need to rearrange this body's priorities. Walking with a horse pulling a cart full of her possessions was Tsunami, a stunning woman with long, flowing blue hair that reached her shoulders. This woman was from a family of farmers in Aim who were traveling through Fire Country in search of a better life outside of the war. Torn region. Finding a secure location to settle down and raise a family was her aim. She recalled her adventures with a smile. The family attempted to relocate abroad after deciding to cut their losses. However, Aim shinobis were blocking emigration, so the family divided in the hopes that at least one person would leave the nation. A year later, they agreed to meet in Fire Country. She faced hardship, starvation, and peril on her journey. However, because she was close to Fire Country's border, she was proud that she would succeed. However, a gang of bandits attacked Tsunami en route. The woman put up a valiant fight against her foul-smelling attackers, but it was in vain. 10 strong, adult men were too strong for a woman who worked on the farm. Well well. For a good-looking bitch, you put up a pretty good fight, one of the bandits grinned, flashing his white teeth. The word, fun, made Tsunami's eyes widen. Do you guys want to have some fun with the bitch? She looks real good. She was fully aware of their intentions. Alright boys. We can have some fun. You too. Pin her down. Since I the boss, I'll have a go at the last first, said a third bandit after the others had all said yes. Tsunami turned to face the man and saw that he was really ugly. He had a dirty beard, yellow teeth, and numerous scars on his face. She felt like throwing up when she unintentionally smelled the bandit's breath. Using a knife, the third bandit began chopping off pieces of her pants, exposing her light pink panty to the men. Then he lowered his trousers. He pushed the panty aside, drew out his penis, and positioned himself to get inside her. Tsunami started to scream and weep at the world, telling them to stop, but the men were dead in their tracks. I wanted to spend my first time with a special someone. Tsunami was losing hope quickly, and tears were streaming down her face. A bandit in the back sneered, "Don't worry, girl. The boss will use his boom smasher on you. You will start enjoying it soon." The other men responded with a roar of laughter. Closing her eyes, the AIM refugee awaited the inevitable. She didn't feel violated yet, so seconds went by. The bandit who was going to steal her virginity was missing a head when she slowly opened her eyes to take a look. She noticed a blood-stained kunai being held by someone nearby. As she followed the arm up, she saw a man with bangs covering his right eye, long black hair that reached his shoulders, and a red left eye with a black object spinning quickly in it. Tsunami lost herself in the crimson hue that represented strength, power, and conviction as she gazed into the man's red eye. Her only option was to gaze in wonder at her savior. With a disarming smile that contrasted with the fluid gushing from his weapon, the man turned to face her. She shuddered when she heard his smooth baritone voice, which conveyed kindness but also demanded respect. "Close your eyes, and it will all be over." Tsunami instantly closed them after sensing the veracity of his statement. She only heard the cries of bandits who were about to rape her or worse for a brief moment. However, she was unable to sense the need to be concerned. She felt secure after hearing the man's words. Naruto declared, "It's safe. You can open your eyes now," in an attempt to reassure the girl following a potentially life-threatening incident. He tried to smile his happiest. "Are you okay, miss?" The man who had just saved her was all Tsunami could look at. He looks like an angel when he smiles like that. After a few moments of memorizing his attractive features and staring at his face, she noticed that he was frowning and waving a hand in her face. She turned away from the ground in embarrassment when she realized she was staring, saying, "Ah. Thank you, sir. I was so scared that they were going to." The blue-haired woman felt two strong arms encircle her before she could say another word. Naruto spoke softly in her ear. "It's all right now, miss. Let it out. They can't hurt you anymore." Tsunami reacted as the gravity of the situation became apparent by pushing off the ground, tackling Naruto to the ground, and sobbing aloud in the man's arms. Naruto rubbed the woman's back in circles and whispered calmingly into her ear after grunting from striking the ground. Naruto absently examined Tsunami's body with his Sharingan, searching for any indication that she was a kunoichi. The woman is in her late teens. Let's see. She is a little undernourished, but that could be fixed with the right diet. She is not a fugitive noble or concubine because of her rough, calloused hands. As a farmer, her biceps, quadriceps, deltoid, and rhomboid muscles have to work much harder than the rest of her body. With the right diet, her B bust size could increase to DDs. A slim waist and excellent hips for childbearing. The analysis is finished. She would be an unsatisfactory Naruto. Naruto is bad. When a girl is healing from a traumatic experience, you shouldn't be looking at her 3 sizes. Damn it, Rikudo Sennin. I hold you accountable for this, Arrow, Sennin. Because of all the attractive nude women taking a bath in the hot spring, the individual in question was occupied with hiding behind a wooden wall and laughing like a schoolgirl. His super pervert senses began to tingle as he licked his lips and started to write in his reliable notebook. He leapt to his feet and screamed into the air, oblivious to the people he was observing. Aha! Someone in this world is following the path of the sage. The path of the super pervert. I must find this person. It is a glorious day for... A cough behind him cut off his speech to the sky. The sage turned slowly to see if anyone needed assistance, being the good Samaritan that he was. There, he witnessed a number of women carrying different weapons while wrapping themselves in towels. "Hey ladies, nice to see you here." Jiraiya chuckled as he realized he was in trouble and began to perspire. But the brave Jiraiya would be safe if I played my cards correctly. If I say, I was just passing by and... His train of thought halted when a woman's towel slipped down slightly, exposing more of the girl's cleavage to him. "Oh Kasumi. You've grown," the pervert said, panting like a bull and groping with his hands. "Die." Kasumi sprinted over to him while brandishing her katana. The other woman began attacking the self-described super pervert as a result. The sounds of irate women delivering feminine justice and girlish screams filled the hot springs. Tsunami wept for several minutes before gradually ceasing. Unwillingly, she withdrew from her savior's embrace. Naruto made the decision to present himself. "Hello. My name is Obito Uchiha. Nice to meet you, miss." "Tsunami. Tsunami Suzuki. Thank you for protecting me against those bandits, Obito-san." When Naruto realized who he had saved, all he could do was stare in disbelief. "Hold on a second, she looks familiar. Did I just stop Inari from being born if this is the same woman as Tsunami? Chan from Wave Country, who was raped during the Third Shinobi World War in my previous life." She didn't really want to discuss who Inari's real father was, even though her husband Kaiza was a father figure but not her child's biological father. What a waste. In theory, did I just kill someone? He needed to make sure she was safe, so he put the problem off for another day. She was, after all, the most compassionate woman he had ever encountered. "It's alright, Tsunami. Chan. A beautiful girl like you shouldn't experience something that horrible." The cheeks of Tsunami turned red. The way he pronounced her name pleased her. "Where are you heading, Tsunami?" "Chan, I need to get back to Konoha." Then Tsunami begged, I was traveling through Fire Country to find a place to settle down. Can I come with you? He could be the prince I've been searching for." Of course. He pulled out a sealing scroll he had discovered on a battlefield, his smile making her heart race. He opened it with a poof and handed over some stolen Iwa shinobi clothing. He dispatched some clones to survey the area while she was changing, and others to encrypt Tsunami's possessions. She took Naruto's hand after waiting a few minutes and learning that Tsunami had finished changing. She struggled to get to her feet before they failed her. Her bridal style is caught by Naruto before she can fall. One of the clones placed the scroll in Naruto's back pocket, and the others began to dispel themselves one by one. "You can't move on your own yet. I'll carry you back to the village." Naruto leapt on a tree branch and began running to Konoha using a small amount of chakra. Tsunami settled into the embrace of her savior. "I believe that he is the one." After making that choice, Tsunami breathed in Naruto's aroma and relished being carried like a fairy tale princess. Returning to Konoha with Tsunami took 2 days. At last, they noticed the enormous wooden gate, and Naruto smiled. "I'm glad to be back at home." A shinobi guard questioned, "Halt, who are you?" "Chunin Obito Uchiha. Exporting a refugee from AIM, Tsunami Suzuki." The guard didn't recognize the man wearing a Konoha headband, so he was muttering the name as he scrolled down the list. In agreement, he tapped the name. "ID number 010886. With a suspicious glance at the Uchiha in question, the guard called for an Anbu squadron and said, "Welcome back, Chunin. Your team came back home 2 weeks ago and is currently on probation. You're listed as Kia?" "I thought you said you were a Konoha shinobi." Tsunami snapped at her savior, wondering if he would also do terrible things to her. "I did. It was just that in my last mission, I got stuck in a cave-in. It took a while to find my way back." Tsunami could only give the man a faint gasp. "And I already have my doubts about him. I'm a terrible person. I'm sorry, Obito-san." "It's alright. You and your associate are to be escorted to the Hokage's office to be questioned. Failing to agree or resisting means death." One of the Anbu said, "Chunin Obito Uchiha." The squad surrounded the two individuals, their hands poised to draw their weapons. "Troublesome. Let's get this over with." Naruto saw both his grandfather Hiruzen Sarutobi and father Minato Namikaze when he entered the Kage's office with Tsunami encircled by a group of Anbu. Although Kagami Uchiha, the former clan leader of the Uchiha clan according to Obito's recollections, was present, he didn't seem to be as significant as the two inspirational leaders of Konoha in front of him. Obito's recent memories and military discipline kept Naruto from crying and rushing to embrace the two male role models. Waiting for his Kage to speak, Naruto just stood as erect as he could. He glanced around the room with his now coal-black eyes and saw that not much had changed. On the wall was the red hat of the Hokage, which had the kanji for fire on it. On the side of the room was a bookshelf containing a few novels. The worn out chairs in front of the desk had the same appearance. There were more stacks of papers on the desk, but that was the only change. All three men could only stare inwardly at the man who identified himself as Obito Uchiha, dressed in a combination of Iwa and Kiri shinobi clothing, while Naruto looked around him. When Minato first saw his student, he instinctively knew that this was Obito. What sort of fool, after all, would pick someone who passed away 2 weeks ago and then enter an enemy village while dressed in that village's attire? All he wanted to know was how his student had survived and why he had changed so much. Hiruzen and Kagami also reached the same conclusion, but since they were leaders, they were unable to express their emotions and had to put the safety of the village first. With a cough that sounded like a grunt, Hiruzen said to the shinobi in front of him, "Shunin Obito Uchiha, report. Start from the beginning of your mission." Naruto also did. He discussed all of the important details that preceded the rock slide after Obito's recollections. He continued talking about returning to the village while avoiding enemy scouts, scavenging supplies from dead shinobi, and saving a civilian while avoiding the subject of Obito's death. Throughout the narrative, Hiruzen scowled thoughtfully. There was a pause before he asked a question he was curious about. "How did you survive when you were buried in the rock slide?" "I unlocked my Mangekyo Sharingan that allowed me to perform a space-time ninjutsu." Despite their shock, the three men all saved the information for later use. Hiruzen demanded, "Show me." Naruto activated his red Tomo eyes, which became spinning pinwheels, by sending chakra into his eyes. Then he began to move forward after using the Kamui in his right eye. The Anbu in the room tensed, but Hiruzen signaled them to stand down by raising his hand. Everyone was shocked when Obito passed through the chair. Even the Anbu who was hiding in the office was startled by the silence. Everyone's minds were racing, so it took some time for them to go and absorb this wonder. After all, seeing someone walk through a solid object in defiance of the law of physics is not something you see very often. Kagami Uchiha was the only one considering several strategies to take advantage of this. He might be looking for this orphan Uchiha to restore the Uchiha clan's renown and status from the Madara era. Kagami was an honest political leader and a good husband, but his Uchiha ancestry still made him a power-hungry man. The Uchiha's stoic demeanor was destroyed when he saw how a young shinobi of the Uchiha clan, younger than the renowned Uchiha Madara, had developed his eyes further, something that fewer than a dozen people had accomplished since its discovery, with two new, undocumented powers. This caused him to smile. Before Hiruzen could realize that the man in front of them was actually Obito Uchiha, the Kage and Minato exchanged a few more intimate questions as they recovered from this shock. He wrote a few words. "Thank you Chunin Obito Uchiha. Please rest for 2 weeks and report back for duty with your sensei. I am glad you are back home." He then stamped the upper right corner of Obito's files. Obito smiled and nodded, taking a step back to let his grandfather figure speak to the woman beside him. Obito had to consider his options while Tsunami and Hiruzen conversed. "To survive the Third Shinobi War and ensure Konoha maintains its lead, I must first become much stronger. Be powerful enough to stop the Kuruma from destroying the village in the event that Madara chooses to carry out the same scheme with a different shinobi. In order to stop the Fifth War from starting, make sure Madara doesn't start the Fourth Shinobi War and give Minato Sensei suggestions for fortifying the boundaries surrounding Fire Country. Simply amazing. I also have to make sure that neither Danzo, Teme nor Orochimaru, Teme try to steal my eyes while I'm doing all of this. And have a family. That cannot be forgotten. Next, I need to make a..." Hiruzen yelled, "Obito!" interrupting Obito's brainstorming session. "Huh? Tsunami.san here will be living with you since we don't have any available apartment complexes. Treat her well, is that clear?" "Understood." He smiled at Tsunami, who appeared to have won the lottery, shivering from the intense stare. He tilted his head in an attempt to understand her happiness. Ultimately, despite his increased awareness of the wonders of female flesh, Naruto remains largely ignorant of the other sex. However, he had little dating experience and had forgotten all about Hinata's crush on him. Naruto, Obito conversed with Tsunami as they strolled through Konoha's streets. He observed that despite the ongoing war, the majority of the civilian population was cheerful and resolute, which stood in stark contrast to the depressing sense of helplessness when news spread that AIM had arrived at Konoha's doorstep. Some even gave him respectful nods, which made him feel content on the inside as both Obito and Naruto. He found the Uchiha district to be a surreal place to walk, since they never assisted him when he was being beaten up and always attempted to place the blame on him during his prank wars with the shopkeepers. He never lived close to the Uchiha district as a child. He only stopped by to pick up his teammate Sasuke during missions because he always thought the district was a ghost town. Additionally, the entire area was destroyed in the Fifth World War. Following the path he remembered, Obito reached a modest two-story home close to the edge of the Uchiha compound, furnished with a few pieces of furniture and adorned with numerous Uchiha fan symbols. He opened the door, let Tsunami in, and went to his room upstairs. Obito was exhausted at that point because, despite the Shinju Chakra's upgrade, his body wasn't used to remaining awake for an entire week. Naruto walked to the futon and collapsed onto the cushion, causing his body to shut down and his mind to be consumed. For the first time in a long time, Naruto was able to sleep soundly without fear of danger and without thinking about the resident female who was living in the house he was responsible for. Later, he thought he had a teddy bear next to him that smelled good, but the thought vanished as he fell asleep. In his dream, he was swimming through ramen and Dango? He grinned. The following morning, Naruto was greeted by a beam of bright sunshine. Blindly reaching down to pull the white bed sheets over himself, Uchiha flipped himself over to the side with his back to the window, complaining in his sleep as he blocked it out with the pale backside of his arm. But to his astonishment, his fingers found a smooth, meaty object. His right hand shifted to feel the soft blanket as his subconscious attempted to identify the firmness and texture he had experienced throughout his life but was unable to do so. He heard an erotic moan close by, which brought his analysis to a halt. Beside him there was an erotic moan. He activated his Sharingan and opened his eyes. He glanced slowly around the room, still half asleep, not quite knowing where he was. On reflex, his other hand went to the kunai beneath the potted plant Obito had placed there for protection. The realization that he was sleeping in Obito's room caused his brain to reboot in a matter of milliseconds. He was wide awake and holding the kunai, ready to stab the person next to him. He finally noticed what his hands were grabbing as he turned to face the enemy. It should be noted that the 26-year-old Naruto Uzu, who later became Uchiha, did not scream in a feminine manner. He ate some of Tsunami's homemade breakfast before leaving the house, with a large red handprint, following the incident with Tsunami, which involved a lot of bowing and apologizing. Naruto went to the Uchiha Training Ground 83 to work out the kinks in his body, deciding to give the civilian some time to get used to her new surroundings. He went over his customized katas in the serene grassy setting to incorporate Obito's understanding of the Uchiha Inceptor Fist and how to use the Sharingan with it. In the background, his clones kept practicing elemental ninjutsu on Obito. Naruto hurriedly sat down in a meditative position beneath a tree to sense the energy of nature after hours of constant movement. Naruto believed that he needed to prepare his body in order to eventually access Sage's mode, even though his contract with the Toads would be null and void. It felt different to him even though he knew. Rather than attempting to entice the energy to enter him, it simply passed through his body without any problems, but he was unable to grasp onto it. Since Obito had never had a summoning contract, Naruto reasoned that he couldn't muster the energy, but he rejected the notion. Everyone could do it, after all, but they lacked the necessary knowledge. Madara thought that the Senju inherited the Sage's Yang Chakra, while the Uchiha inherited the Sage's Yin Chakra, so he thought that Obito's Uchiha body was very different from his own. He never noticed the red pigment that was gradually taking on the appearance of Hashirama's Sage mode on Obito's face since he had closed his eyes. And that was how Naruto Uchiha tried to stay away from the current Team 7 during his 2 weeks off. During the day, he worked on his elemental ninjutsu and katas, and in the afternoon, he sat and tried to reconnect with nature. At night, he would visit to assist the elderly residents of Konoha, a skill he inherited from Obito, and assist Tsunami in unloading her supplies and preparing dinner. He was heartbroken to see his sensei and 2 teammates during the 2 weeks. Naruto read one of the books he had discovered in the Uchiha library while peacefully perched in a tree. He learned some genjutsu tricks with his Sharingan and used it to memorize the text while waiting for Team 7, or Team Minato, to appear. Since he learned the most practical jutsus from Madara or his wartime allies, it appears that he found no use for the Uchiha library of jutsus. In remembrance of Sasuke's rivalry and sacrifice, Naruto also changed his clothes, partly because they were too small and because he wanted to don the clothes he had during the 4th Shinobi War. Thus, Naruto wore a black shirt with a high collar and a zipper on the back that featured an image of the Uchiha fan. In addition, he had a red rope belt knotted around his waist and a black cloth over his black Anbu pants. In order to appear professional to his new or former team, he also wore his black Anbu boots. When he saw 3 familiar figures, he stopped reading. He leapt from his tree and glanced at Kakashi Hatake and Rin Nohara, his teammates. Obito had a crush on Rin Nohara, who might have liked Kakashi. She serves as the team's medic and mediates disputes between us. She is a Chunin like me due to her intelligence and poisons, even though she isn't known for any significant fighting jutsu. Contributes significantly to Obito's decline into evil. The Chidori, lightning release, 1000 birds, was recently made by Kakashi Hatake, a Jonin who is regarded as a genius among geniuses in his own right. After the death of his father, he became a stickler for rules and despises me for being foolish. Let's now demonstrate to him how far behind he is. Since he used Senin Garashi, 1000 years of death, I still need retribution. The words, Dobi, You made Kakashi gasp. Obito-kun, Rin exclaimed, her face turning red. With a smirk reminiscent of Uchiha that would have pleased Sasuke, Naruto said, well, hello. Die. When Naruto noticed that the approaching Chidori, lightning release, 1,000 birds, was just a few seconds away from stabbing him in the chest, his smirk vanished. Naruto instantly leaned back quickly enough that the lightning encased hand was only inches away from electrifying his face because he didn't want to experience the lightning jutsu again. He let himself drop completely to the ground, supported himself on the dirt with both hands, and launched his future sensei into the air with a double mule kick. He was going to leap into the air to execute the Shishi Renden, Lion's Barrage, which is Sasuke's version of the Omet Renge, Front Locus. However, something yellow flashed in his path and firmly grasped his shoulder before he could do so. The shinobi who would become the fabled fourth Hokage of Konoha suddenly came into view. He had steel blue eyes and a noticeable frown. Kakashi. Minato shouted, "What the hell are you doing?" at the silver-haired figure that was descending again while two Minato clones were holding down Kakashi's limbs. Kakashi landed back on the ground and growled like a dog at Naruto, who appeared to be as perplexed as Rin. He yelled, "I don't care if our new teammate happens to be another Uchiha, but he shouldn't replace him by being called Obito." Huh? Minato muttered in confusion, and the two other members of Team Minato said the same thing to themselves. Like Itachi, Kakashi took a few deep breaths and quickly wiped out all of his emotions. Then he whispered something that everyone could hear. "Sensei, you said a week ago that the Dobi survived and was going to be back on team." For emphasis, Minato patted Naruto's shoulder and said, "In fact, he's right here. With us." Naruto gave his father a nod of agreement. "No, he is not him." Kakashi gave Naruto a hateful look that made him think of someone else. "Remember Sensei, I can sense chakra. Although his chakra is similar to the Dobi's, his chakra feels very different." He then turned to Minato. "Unless you can explain why his chakra is so different." Minato recalled his Kage's orders and retorted, "That's classified." Given how uncommon the advanced form of the dojutsu was unlocked and how secretive the Uchiha clan is about it, nobody really knows much about the mysteries of the Mangekyo Sharingan. If Obito's claim that unlocking the Mangekyo Sharingan altered his chakra was accurate, Hokage Sama stated that he did not want other villages to learn that it was possible for a person to alter their chakra signature. Because if they did, they might discover some tricks on how to change their signature so that they resemble any Konoha shinobi and can enter Konoha with ease. Furthermore, any village would be eager to experiment with Obito-kun. He sighed to himself because he could already see how many problems Obito's return would cause over the course of the next few years. Not only outside the village, either. Something in the back of his mind told him that the Uchiha clan would be giving him a lot of headaches soon. With a bitter tone, Kakashi asked, "Then can you explain why he acts so different?" Kakashi. Everyone would act different after being buried under a rock slide alive. And Obito was lucky enough to survive and be with us today. The not. Really? Future. Cyclops screamed to his teacher, his eyebrows twitching somewhat erratically. "No, this person is not Obito. Obito is. He is. A freaking Dobi. He is shorter. He definitely wears goggles. He definitely does not read scrolls in his free time. He wears stupidly bright orange and not a silent hawk on the tree. And as Obito does not come early for crying out loud." Minato rubbed his forehead in distress and responded wisely, "He is Obito." The fact that Obito had a different chakra signature didn't seem to bother him. Perhaps Kakashi was more hurt by Obito's alleged death than I realized? Kakashi yelled, "No, he is not Obito." "Yes, he is," hit back Minato. "No, he is not." Naruto gave a little flinch when he understood why Kakashi had reacted the way he had during their argument over who the Obito was, which was gradually turning into a full-on brawl. Chakra was defined in textbooks as a combination of spiritual and physical energies. He felt that I am a completely different person after feeling Obito's new chakra, which also included my chakra, given that this Kakashi is a censor and most likely remembered all the subtleties of Obito's chakra signature. My dislike of Rin's love. Sick puppy doesn't help either. Still, he ought to trust his teammates more. Above all, though, did Sensei ever claim to be a censor? Is this a change in the timeline, or did he not tell me? There are still more questions to answer. When the Obito side of him wept with sorrow, he growled. Obito openly showed his hatred for the one person he recognized as a friend and rival. Another part of him muttered that Kakashi would despise him in the same way that. With a semi-determined gaze, Naruto destroyed that line of thought and swiftly left the training ground using a shunshin. How am I to fit in with Team Minato, then? Oh no. In order to locate Madara, I must reintegrate into the team. Now that Sensei will be suspicious of me, I can't even search for the damn guy. Naruto's mind flickered through images of friends who were dying before settling on just one. He recalled all the specifics of the incident, which would have embarrassed the Sharingan. His mouth was dripping copious amounts of blood, and a man with crimson Sharingan eyes stared at him, his face inches from his own. Naruto could only recall the man's mouth moving to form a word, but no sound came out as the tomo in the Sharingan slowly rotated once more. Live. He got it from his mind. Every time Madara destroyed Sasuke's vocal cords with a senpo, Inten, Reiha, Sage Art, Yin Release, Lightning Dispatch, aimed at the neck, Naruto would dream about what his friend's last words might have sounded like. Since Madara's defeat, Naruto has been plagued by this dream most days. In order to put an end to the suffering and devastation caused by the elder Uchiha's schemes, Naruto vowed to kill Madara during this time. He would also ensure that his new Sharingan would retain all of the information. His black eyes swiftly transformed into their Mangekyu form without Naruto's knowledge, as though the eyes themselves accepted this promise. The glimmer of insanity that lingered in those scarlet eyes, however, would have been more worrisome if a passerby had noticed Naruto. Rin was ecstatic when Minato Sensei informed her that her teammate Obito had somehow survived and was now secure in Konoha. Additionally, she was a little nervous about meeting Obito. She was saddened, like the rest of Team Minato, that one of the few people she had a close relationship with had died a terrible death. However, she felt that her kidnapping was the direct cause of Obito's death, in contrast to the other members of the team. She was unable to defend herself against the Iwa shinobi who abducted her and made Kakashi and Obito give up their attempt to save her. She felt weak and like a huge burden to the team, even though she was proud that her medic.nin lessons kept her from disclosing any important information during the Genjutsu integration. Rin withdrew into the hospital following the unsuccessful mission, where she would carry on with her lifelong work of healing patients. But when she was unable to accurately diagnose a patient's condition without seeing Obito's dead body, her haven of stability fell apart. Ultimately, her supervisor made her take a week off to recuperate. It was not at all helpful. Some days ended with nightmares in which Obito was shown screaming in agony beneath rocks and gushing blood all over the place, while other days showed a bloodied Obito mouthing the word, "Traitor," while angrily staring at her. Her life felt utterly miserable, even though she did visit a psychologist in the hopes that the pain would subside. Rin was left to suffer alone from a severe case of post-traumatic stress disorder since neither Minato nor Kakashi could assist her because they were also coping with their own guilt. One day, Rin sprinted around Konoha as quickly as she could to locate Obito after Minato declared his return. However, the adorable boy was nowhere to be seen, which disappointed her. She wanted to tell him that she couldn't accept his feelings so he could find someone else to love, that she was sorry for being weak, that she was grateful for all of his support, and a lot more. Rin tried every day to find Obito whenever she had time so she could just say something to him because it was a catharsis of emotions. However, she never did. Obito never made it through the rock slide, and it seemed as though Sensei's words were a dream. She was only persuaded that she was simply unlucky and missed him by the comforting words of the elderly people Obito had recently assisted. Everything that was on the tip of her tongue vanished like air when the team eventually reunited. The attractive figure of Obito Uchiha was all she could look at. A recognizable Uchiha smirk accompanied the penetrating coal-black eyes. The wavy black hair with a few white strands mixed in, and the pointed chin. As he approached them like a cat on a hunt, the stylish battle kimono embraced every curve of his body. Rin was so taken aback by the new Obito that she had only one thought. My god, Obito got really hot, ka. She didn't notice Kakashi glaring at Obito until her sensei, Minato, began yelling, interrupting her attempt to overly analyze every change Obito had made in the past month. While Obito was growing more and more estranged, what was meant to be a joyful reunion turned into a shouting match between Sensei and Kakashi. Without the two other males' knowledge, Rin also departed when Obito vanished. She was resolved to make amends and then find a way to change for the better. Much more powerful. Team Minato won't reunite until after that. Like a contented family once more. It's unfortunate that a straightforward plan will always be irreparably damaged when an unpredictable person like Naruto enters the picture. He showed up at his house and peered through the window to see Tsunami cheerfully cooking dinner tonight while whistling a catchy melody. His mind was filled with visions of his dying, bloodied friends just as he was ready to open the red door to get a snack. Unaware that he was using the red dojutsu, he tightened his hold on the door handle. As the images of burning villages, the bodies of children being buried, and great leaders being decapitated in front of hundreds of people continued to race through his head, he felt pain coursing through his veins. Naruto's eyes flickered through emotions, then settled on regret, oblivious to the now destroyed door handle. Haku, you mentioned that having valuable people is the only way for me to be strong, but I didn't succeed. I'm still not strong. Would you scowl at me for concurring with Madara if you were with me right now? The more I live with the sins of my past, the more I believe. I gradually come to believe Madara was correct every day. A voice emerged from his thoughts, coming from behind him, Uchiha, Sama. When Naruto turned around, he saw a member of his new clan who was stoic. He raised an eyebrow that the man could see, quickly wiping out any emotion from his face. Kagami. Sama wishes to see you immediately. With a quick glance back at his home, Naruto noticed that Tsunami had paused his daikon, chopping to give him a curious look. He waved and smiled quickly, receiving a shy smile in return, and then proceeded to chop the vegetable. Like any Uchiha, he turned to face the distant relative and gave a nod of agreement. Since both people spoke Uchiha fluently, they were able to communicate without using words. Naruto consented to let the man lead him through the bustling Uchiha neighborhood to a familiar home for a meeting with the clan head after exchanging a few grunts, HNS, and facial expressions. Naruto could only recall what Madara had said to him when he teasingly stepped on his best friend's lifeless body as the man unlocked the wooden door for him to enter. You ask why I am willing to do this stupid idea of creating a false reality when you are already blinded by the reality before you. How ignorant. This world is full of things that don't go as you wish, boy. The longer you live, the more you destroy that childhood naivety, Uzumaki. You might be an adult under the law when you adorn that headband, but you are still blinded by your illusions. You aren't a real shinobi. You are merely a child playing as a shinobi. Open your eyes. Realize that reality is made upon the emotions of pain, suffering, and emptiness. Only then you will realize how much the world has taken from you, and how powerless you are to stop it. That is why Hashirama failed. He was still blinded by the illusions of reality all the way till his death and thus could not bring peace. Instead, he brought more war when the world needed less. Itachi Uchiha, a stoic 4-year-old, was staring back at Naruto with the lone Tomo Sharingan eyes as he entered the courtyard. Only a Uchiha blessed with the Sharingan can break through this illusion and see reality for what it really is. It doesn't matter what age or how strong the Uchiha must be. This is what the Sage of Six Paths gifted to us. Not eyes that allows us to understand jutsu at a fundamental level or allows us to easily utilize genjutsu with a single glance. But rather eyes to see how the world truly is. But while few are blessed with these gifts, only the very few individuals who embrace this reality unlocks the Mangekyo Sharingan and gives them the chance to change it for the better. Amaterasu, Tsukuyomi, Susanoo, Kamui, Koto Amatsukami, Izanagi. These are the powers that the sage has given us in hopes that we can finish his work and establish peace across the elemental nations. We are the sage's instruments. The Uchiha. Not the Senju. Not the Uzumaki. And definitely not the Hyuga. We are the chosen ones granted this noble power at a price. If we sacrifice our vision, we allow the rest of the world to see our vision triumph over reality. This is why I carry out the infinite Tsukuyomi. To ensure no one can ever suffer like my Oto. Naruto merely used his own Tomo to stare back stoically. Itachi grinned slightly as he switched off his Sharingan. Hi ni-san. He sprinted over to give Naruto a hug. I'm glad you're back. Ka-san said that you wouldn't come back for a long time. But now, you're here. Can you please teach me a new fire jutsu? Additionally, Naruto shut off his own dojutsu and remarked, maybe later. He patted the once dreaded Uchiha Itachi on the head, recalling Obito's memories. When his request was turned down, Itachi pouted like a chipmunk, but Naruto thought the boy looked cute. It dawned on him that he had just described a future S-rank ninja as cute. I may soon need to see a psychologist, I believe. It's absurd that I would use the words cute and Itachi together. However, I'm relieved that I don't say youth every 30 seconds or so. There was a female voice from the house calling out, Itachi, let Obito-kun talk to your Gigi. Get in here and help me set up the table. Before rushing to the house, Itachi gave Naruto another tight hug and said, okay Ka-san. This gave Naruto time to continue reflecting while he followed Itachi slowly. And now I have the opportunity to bring about peace, thanks to the sage himself. Perhaps Madara was correct after all. It would be impossible to build a world without suffering. Even though he is a bastard, his heart has always been a great philosopher. However, the question now is it still worth it? How can I bring about peace if the great Hashirama was unable to do so without turning the entire world into a lie? If I fail, there's no point in giving me another chance. No, before I start jumping through trees, let's take it slow. First, I have to keep Konoha safe. If I prevent the outbreak of the 4th and 5th Shinobi War, then I can have children who won't have to endure the same suffering that I did as a child. Additionally, sticking with Team Minato won't advance my objective, since my presence has already done a fantastic job of ruining the entire timeline with Inari. Perhaps I should just do it myself. Shika would know what to do if he were present. For Obito, going into the home of the Uchiha clan head brought back many pleasant and comfortable memories. Every week, whenever Obito had some spare time, he loved to come over and teach Itachi a new ninja academy trick. Itachi was smart enough to fill in the blanks and comprehend what Obito was trying to teach him, even though Obito was by no means an excellent teacher. The young heir was taught everything from Shuri Kenjutsu to enhancing Taijutsu with chakra. By wartime standards, this enabled Itachi to become a genin at the age of 4 before being admitted to the academy for 2 more years. Unbeknownst to Itachi, Obito solidified his reputation as a knowledgeable instructor and an inspiration. Itachi would share Obito's fervent desire to become Hokage with his close relatives, who would then inform the rest of the clan. By doing this, Obito's dream was shared with the entire Uchiha clan, who were ready to help him when the time came for him to become Hokage. They reasoned that Obito had the ability to guide Konoha into greater prosperity with the Uchiha at the helm if he could teach Itachi how to successfully perform Kaden Gokakyu no Jutsu, Fire Release, Great Fireball Technique, to pass the Uchiha rite of passage at the extraordinary age of 4. Many people thought Obito wasn't a prodigy, but given his level of drive and passion, he could have been at least an A-rank shinobi. Obito had the distinct characteristics of a jutsu creator in addition to his enormous inventiveness, demonstrated by the numerous tricks he pulled at the Hyuga that the Uchiha covertly approved of. Therefore, many were incensed at the death and desecration of a prominent and adored member of the Uchiha community when Kakashi received Obito's Sharingan in the original timeline. However, Obito and Naruto were unaware of this. The only reason Naruto knew he was accepted into the clan head family was because he taught the future clan head so well. Naruto was therefore not shocked to be greeted by Kagami Uchiha, a familiar, serene face that quietly conveyed joy. Although he was Sasuke's grandfather, Kagami is most known for being Konoha's Taikoku Hinorashi, Imperial Firestorm, during the First Shinobi World War. He was rated as an A-class shinobi due to his amazing fire release skills, which included the amazing Kaden Goka Mekyaku, Fire Release, Majestic Destroyer Flame, which helped him destroy important enemy formations and decimate large groups of shinobi. Before being forced to retire early at the age of 15 due to a leg injury, he was also noted as one of the few Uchiha who came the closest to becoming the Madara Uchiha. Naruto bowed to the Uchiha and said, "Kagami-sama." The sight of Obito's surrogate father figure made his voice sound more affectionate. Kagami responded with a hint of humor, "Obito, I'm glad you're back. Many missed your bolstering presence. Some more than others." Naruto concurred, recalling being surrounded by numerous Uchiha children who were equally thrilled that their older brother figure had escaped the grip of death. Indeed, Kagami-sama. The little ones were a little more excited than usual, given that Kakashi Sensei had informed Naruto during the war that Obito was cut off from the rest of the clan. Naruto was genuinely taken aback by the Uchiha's love for him, which raises the question: Kakashi's erroneous observations are a difference in the world. Kagami's friendly tone gradually changed to one of wrath. "Oh, I was referring to my daughter. Word of your death saddened her greatly until you came back." By the end, Kagami's tone became icy as his activated Sharingan dug holes into Naruto. Which begs the question: why haven't you visited her earlier? You were here for 2 whole weeks and I have not seen one hair of you since. Would you care to explain? Naruto swallowed as he hurried to think of a reason not to urinate on the Uchiha. Even though Obito's memories of Kagami's wrath never ended well, Naruto was terrified of how vindictive the man could be toward his enemies, making his childhood antics seem like harmless parties. Was doing. As the Crimson Dojutsu kept staring at the quivering figure at the house's entrance, Kagami folded his arms and repeated mockingly, "Was doing. Tell me, Obito," the man said with a visibly twitching eyebrow. "Was that civilian at your house occupying so much of that useless space in your head you called a brain? Do you have any decency to act like a mature Uchiha shinobi when you have guests? Naruto was shocked by Sasuke's grandfather's irrational conclusion involving him and Tsunami. However, someone else responded before he could. A female voice cheerfully broke the tension between the two men, saying, "Father, could you please stop being mean to Obito-kun? I'm sure he was just busy. Thank you." Thankful for the rescue, Naruto turned to see a female Uchiha approaching them with assurance. Uchiha Makoto. To Naruto's secret delight, the woman, dressed simply in shorts and a navy blue shirt, cut out a powerful yet attractive figure that accentuated all the right curves. Makoto was the sophisticated female kunoichi with a touch of aristocratic maturity, whereas Tsunami was the adorable but lustful farmer. Equipped with taut long legs and firm C-cup breasts, her luminous coal black eyes pierced any male who was fortunate enough to catch her eye. Whoa! She's a 10. Okay. Perhaps an 11, a 12, or even a 13, I'm so excited for her to grow up. As soon as that thought crossed the time traveler's mind, Naruto repeatedly slammed his head against the wall in order to examine Sasuke's married mother. Arrow. Sennin won't get me through this one, for crying out loud. We're grateful that Kami is currently in heaven. At least he's back at home. Nei-san, was Naruto's automatic response as memories of Sasuke's mother served as Obito's stand-in older sister. Makoto Uchiha walked up to Naruto and gave him a tight hug. Naruto returned the hug, trying to conceal his blush of embarrassment as he felt her assets on his chest, while he reminded himself that he was a couple of inches taller than her. When an approving expression appeared on her face, she must have realized that too. She put her hand to her head to compare Obito's height to her own, saying slyly, "You got taller, Obito. Have you been drinking your milk recently? I thought you would never sprout up like a tree." Naruto complained about her cruelty. Naruto smiled at Itachi's mother as he pulled away from the embrace. "It's good to see you again, Nei-san. How's Itachi now these days?" "He is doing great. He was recently thinking of picking up Kenjutsu after seeing you wave a sword around 2 months ago." "I was not waving a sword around. I was practicing my katas," Naruto grumbled. In his mind, he chuckled at Obito's pathetic attempts to emulate Kakashi's cool persona. "At least I courted Sakura more successfully. At least I believe." Makoto asked incredulously, "Really? It looked like you were trying to chop your arm off." Naruto winced at the flimsiness of that argument. I was practicing a new form that I learned. It wasn't my fault that I turned your bushes red. Why am I behaving like such a child? How much of an impact does Obito have on me? This is worth looking into." "Yes, the sword is to blame. I apologize for not recognizing it sooner," she remarked mockingly. Naruto was saved by his disciple before Obito's personality could further erode him. Itachi shouted from inside the house, "Ka-san, the food looks like it's on fire." Makoto tried to save her food for lunch, but she rushed into the house as soon as she realized that food was still cooking on the stove. She responded to Naruto's shout, "Sorry Obito-kun, I'll talk to you later. I'm just glad you're safe." Naruto waved at the vanishing woman and said, "Bye Nei-san. I'll be stopping by to teach Itachi in a couple of days." The drama between the two Uchihas made Kagami snicker a little. His eyes flashed red, then coal black again, and he grunted loudly to get Obito's attention, saying, "Anyway, I called you here Obito because the elders wish to discuss what you have recently gained." Naruto nodded his head in understanding. "Now?" Kagami handed him a scroll and said, "No, this has all the instructions for the location of the meeting tomorrow at midday. Make sure to dispose of it." When Naruto put the scroll in his kimono pocket, he remarked, "Understood Kagami. Sama. Will you join us for lunch?" asked the A-rank shinobi. Naruto said sincerely, "I apologize, but I have other things to attend to." Before entering the house slowly, Kagami grinned and said, "Acceptable. Have a great day Obito-kun." Then he looked back at Obito with his neck turned. "I trust you will tell no one of this, correct?" As he quoted from his sensei, who was not his sensei at the time, Naruto innocently said, "Huh? I'm sorry, did we say something Kagami-sama?" Based on the smell he was smelling, Kagami simply shook his head in amusement and proceeded to the kitchen for his burnt lunch. As he left the house, Naruto noticed that he still had a few hours before supper while glancing up at the sky. He salivated in his mind over the mouthwatering stew Tsunami was preparing. The warm feeling of having someone prepare his dinner every day made him very happy. "Tsunami and I should go out to dinner soon, I think. Staying at my house all day shouldn't be healthy. and I owe her a huge debt of gratitude for all the delicious food she prepared for me. Where should I take her, though? Ooh. It's been a while since I've eaten ramen. Perhaps I should get her some ramen Ichiraku. Naruto smiled genuinely contentedly as he visualized the mouth-watering ramen he was about to stuff his stomach with. It's so good to be home, man. In order to locate a specific store based on Obito's recollections, Naruto chose to head in the opposite direction, toward the Uchiha market district, rather than walking home. He stopped for a quick dango snack en route. Naruto discovered the basic store and opened the door to discover racks upon racks of weapons ranging from the basic kunai to more unusual weapons like hook swords. Glancing around, he located the person he sought. With a box full of shuriken, the elderly man emerged from the rear with a grunt. He set the box down on the counter and saw a familiar face when he looked up. "Obito!" exclaimed the elderly man cheerfully as he approached Naruto. "It's great to see you again. Thank you for helping my wife out yesterday with the groceries." "It's no problem, Kaharu. Gigi. Anyway, can I use the forge in the back? I have a project I want to complete and I already have all the materials ready to go." The elderly Uchiha gave Naruto a gentle pat on the shoulder and said, "It's all yours, boy. You helped us so much over the years, so it's the least I can do. But make sure to holler if you need anything." Before making his way to the rear of the store to begin constructing his beloved weapon, which he had been missing, Naruto bowed in gratitude and said, "Thanks, Gigi." A Uchiha forge was a special kind of forge that was exclusive to the elemental nations. This forge, which was made to withstand high temperatures, enabled Uchihas to use their powerful fire nature to forge weapons out of hard chakra metal. Moreover, the Sharingan made it easy for them to identify even the smallest defects in a weapon. As a result, Uchiha made weapons are consistently of excellent quality and high cost. Due to the high cost of these weapons, the Uchiha clan derives 34% of their revenue from the sale of basic weapons, though this percentage has recently increased to 72% as a result of the ongoing conflict. For this reason, when they get to Chunin, every Uchiha has to learn how to use the Uchiha forge. Naruto was no different from Obito. Naruto used Kamui, authority of the gods, to retrieve all the necessary supplies from his own personal dimension, including 5 pounds of sensitive grade chakra metal, 5 gallons of extracted blood, and a paintbrush. Naruto was already familiar with all the different tools in this extremely hot workplace. Naruto began cutting the chakra metal into the proper portions while wiping the blood dripping from his right eye with a kunai machine cutter. After that, he gently infused the metal with lightning chakra and spent hours using the hammer to flatten the pieces. Naruto poured the gallons of his blood into a massive metal bucket to cool the metal after he was happy with the pieces of metal that had been pounded. Naruto was able to quickly imprint his own chakra signature onto the weapon by using his own blood as a medium to easily direct as much senjutsu chakra as possible to the boiling blood. The small part of Naruto's mind that he was going to return with a weapon that would kill thousands and thousands of people was ignored. Naruto felt as though he was condemning this world to the ugliness and devastation of the 5th Shinobi World's warfare, given how simple it was for someone with little training to wield this weapon. Naruto would inhale deeply and stand firm in his resolve. He pulled the blood-soaked metals and examined them with his Sharingan for potential cracks. It's for Konoha's benefit. Naruto told himself this. In order to spare them from suffering once more. He picked up the hammer and struck the metal. Yes, it's all for the benefit of society. In contrast to the simple manufactured chakra rifles that fired chakra spheres in Naruto's home dimension, Naruto was building his own rifle. Naruto, who was devastated by Sasuke's passing, was able to convince Kakashi to teach him the Chidori, lightning release, 1000 birds. Naruto never had a Sharingan to use the S-rank jutsu with, so even with all that effort, he was unable to use it effectively in combat. Since they didn't require a Sharingan, he then attempted to replicate all of the other Chidori variants that Sasuke had created, including Chidori Nagashi, lightning release, 1000 birds current, Chidori Senbon, lightning release, 1000 birds Senbon, and Chidori Iso, lightning release, 1000 birds sharp spear. However, he was unable to do so because he lacked the necessary chakra control. But Naruto was still adamant about using some form of Chidori in his fighting to remind himself of Sasuke's sacrifice. Then it occurred to him to have someone else control his chakras if he was incapable of doing it himself. Naruto employed the shape barrel of chakra rifles as a means of achieving a higher degree of chakra control, following the same philosophy as the creation of the Rasengan, spiraling sphere, and its later variations using Kage Bushin no Jutsu, shadow clone technique. Naruto could declare with pride that he had discovered a special method of imitating the Chidori Iso after a great deal of trial and error: lightning release. 1000 birds sharp spear. However, by enhancing the weapon's piercing power and the distance he could use it to pierce an enemy, he also tripled its killing potential. He was informed by Kakashi that he had transformed the A-rank technique Chidori Iso into an S-rank technique, Chidori Reza. Lightning release. 1000 birds laser. And that Sasuke would be pleased with Naruto for significantly enhancing one of his own jutsu creations. Naruto murmured to the finished weapon resting on the table, "Welcome back to the world, Mikazuchi." Naruto looked proud and a little nostalgic as he wiped away the perspiration that had accumulated on his forehead from working 5 hours straight. Mikazuchi was 32 centimeters tall, 10.1 centimeters wide, and 125.7 centimeters long. She weighed 13.2 kilograms. She had an angular geometric design and a metallic casing with a channel matrix barrel, halo light rifle, a scope with a 4x zoom magnification, a firing grip, a stabilizing firing grip, and a stock. As Naruto grasped the handle of the lethal killing machine he had constructed, he infused a sealless Chidori in his right hand, marveling at its beauty and elegance. During her construction, she absorbed pure Senjutsu chakra, which made it possible for his Chidori lightning to flow through the weapon's chakra channels with ease and illuminate the channel matrix barrel with a vivid red glow of electricity. Naruto let out a chuckle that progressed into laughter when he considered how quick and easy it is to make a weapon that would change the face of the elemental nations permanently within the next decade or so. Obito.kun. Are you alright in there? I heard some loud noises that sounded like birds chirping. Do you need help in there? Asked Kaharu. As he looked at the weapon, which felt so natural and comfortable in his hands, Naruto responded, "No, Kaharu. Gigi." This said a lot about how much he used his chakra rifle. "I don't need any help." "Alright then. Make sure you show me what you made in there when you're done. I can already tell it's going to be something great considering that I can hear how happy you are in there from outside the shop." With a hint of melancholy, the Uchiha answered, "Yes, Gigi. She is something outstanding. Yes, she is. She will cause the entire world to turn red." Guiltily, he thought. "And I'll make her even more powerful than she was before." Taking the paintbrush and dipping its tip into the pool of blood, he wrote small characters on the rifle after turning it off. Maybe I should give her a camouflage design later. She looks rather uninteresting right now. Maybe orange? Mikazuchi Mark II, painted with a combination of orange and baby blue stripes, Halo 5 Dying Star light rifle, was a success. Naruto was pleased to report. His extensive use of exterior painted Fuinjutsu seals enabled him to accomplish two significant goals. It enabled him to covertly infuse his Chidori lightning and attach a blood identification tracker to the weapon. Attempting to use Mikazuchi without his consent would result in electrocution for anyone else. Uchiha Naruto showed Kaharu Gigi his creation, pretending it was a model of a futuristic flying ship that was equipped with Sky Village's highly advanced technology and that happened to light up when lightning chakra was applied. Although Obito was well aware of the man's reliability, the time-traveling shinobi didn't want the word to spread too quickly about Chakra Rifle's capabilities lest he miss the brief window of opportunity to penetrate Madara's mind. The Uchiha quickly made his way back home, concealing the weapon in Kamui's dimension, his new favorite spot. When Naruto saw Tsunami at the dinner table, patiently waiting for him, he was overcome with the warm sense of companionship. He stepped into the doorway and made his presence known. "Tadaima, I'm home." As she turned to see Naruto entering the house wearing a basic yukata and some soot, the woman said, "Okari, welcome back." She got up to greet him, smiling modestly. Shyly, Naruto rubbed the back of his head and said, "I apologize, Tsunami-chan. Clan business took a little longer than expected." When the shinobi simply lied in front of the good-hearted person in his previous dimension, he disregarded the stinging sense of betrayal. Ignoring the soot on her savior's person, Tsunami joyfully gave him a hug and said, "It's all right. I'm glad you're back." The former farmer paused to relish the warmth of his company and sniffed a little of her friend. The familiar earthy scent of Naruto's maple trees, combined with a new hint of coal, ash, metal, and perfume, made her smile without realizing it. "Hold on, what?" When she was certain that she smelled a faint but feminine chrysanthemum perfume on the man, she sniffed again to make sure she wasn't dreaming and mentally swore. Oh, so Obito.kun was also hugged. Who else might find him appealing? No Tsunami. It might just be a warm embrace. Angelically, one side whispered to her. The sensual tone of the other side's voice gave her a counter-argument. However, it might be someone identifying our man. You have to get in there and make your presence known right away, Tsunami. I suggest expressing your love for him on the bed. Tsunami blushed profusely at that highly suggestive thought, covering her face like a future Hyuga. Naruto was contentedly savoring the emotional solace Tsunami gave him through the embrace, while Tsunami was mulling over the potential outcomes that resulted in Naruto obtaining female perfume on his person. The time traveler had been experiencing severe homesickness ever since arriving in this new dimension because Jiraiya Sensei was nowhere to be found and none of his friends had even been born yet. Above all, though, Naruto felt completely alienated from Team Minato, while the larger Naruto part of him found it difficult to reconcile the current stick.in.his.ass Kakashi with the future's relaxed and perverted Kakashi. The Obito part of him disapproved of Kakashi's recent hostility. Naruto never truly had a family in the first place, so even though the entire Uchiha clan treated him like family, he still felt alone. As the only constant in Naruto's life, Tsunami was gradually turning into his pillar of support. Naruto could count on her maternal and compassionate demeanor every day, both in the past and the future. In addition, she was healing his mental wounds quite effectively. Even the Hokage, who did not behave much like the grandfather figure Naruto remembered him as, seemed too foreign to Naruto in this parallel or alternate dimension. Naruto hugged him back before they parted ways. Her face was so scarlet that he raised an eyebrow, but he chose not to ask questions and sat down at the dinner table. He was immediately reminded of Hinata by the woman's meek body language and embarrassed ruby face as she walked back to her chair across from him. Naruto quickly suppressed that thought because he was not prepared to deal with any more baggage at this time and did not want to open another emotional can. Naruto and Tsunami exchanged a brief "itadakimasu" before they sat quietly and savored Tsunami's stew. Since Naruto was happy to savor the variety of flavors that exploded in his mouth from the farmer's food, there wasn't much conversation between the two people. He used to survive entirely on military rations, after all. Tsunami, however, was only happy to watch Naruto savor her meal. Tsunami ate for a few minutes before getting up and setting her plate and cutlery on the sink's side. Tsunami turned on the faucet and began washing the dishes before setting them on the drying rack. As Tsunami collected his dishes, Naruto poured himself some tea after finishing the remaining stew. Naruto chose to break the quiet first by taking a sip of the warm liquid. "Tsunami-chan, you have been staying here for 2 weeks. I am very much grateful for all the help you have given me, but don't you want to buy your own house if you plan to live in Konoha?" He got his answer when a plate fell to the ground. When a shard cut Tsunami's finger, she let out a yelp. As Naruto hurried over, he noticed that her finger was bleeding. He started to say something, but stopped when he noticed the hollow expression in her eyes. "Do you want me to leave?" Tsunami muttered sadly, ignoring the pain of her injury, recalling the terrible event involving the bandits. She was still aware of the ghostly hands of the men who wished to take advantage of her pain and violate her. The only bright spot in these recurring nightmares was that when she woke up, she could feel Obito's warm embrace and his assurance that she was safe. She would be alone once more if Obito wanted her gone. She couldn't decide which was scarier, not waking up to Obito's consoling words or reliving the moment when she was nearly sexually assaulted. Naruto immediately recognized that she was experiencing her flashbacks once more because of his prior knowledge of Shinobi's reliving traumatic events. He rubbed her back in calming circles while hugging her. While attempting to ease his companion's mental suffering, Naruto apologetically whispered, "No, you don't need to if you don't want to. Although it would be a lot more lonelier in this house if you wish to do so." She answered distressingly, No, I am fine living here." Then she walked off unsurely. "I feel much safer with you. Here." She closed her eyes and gave Naruto a tight hug while shedding tears and inhaling his reassuring aroma. Unable to speak, Naruto silently kept his arms around the distressed woman rather than putting his foot in his mouth, as he often did in delicate situations. He had no idea who was in the worst condition. He was unable to atone for his previous transgressions. Or Tsunami, a calm civilian who gave up trying to forget how helpless she felt after being sexually assaulted. However, Naruto didn't care about it. "We have each other to help us get through this, after all. Thank you, Rakudo Sennin, for making me feel less alone." Naruto recalled the bleeding finger as Tsunami reluctantly withdrew after the two had been together for a few minutes. Naruto placed the bleeding finger in his mouth while searching the nearby cabinets for the first aid kit. Unaware of the intense red flush that covered Tsunami's face, he removed a basic red band-aid using 3 tomo. "I have been meaning to ask you this. Do you want to eat out for dinner tomorrow night?" he asked openly as he removed the finger from his mouth and applied the bandage. "Like a date?" she asked emphatically before covering her mouth in shame. She quickly forgot about the pain on her finger and concentrated on what he was going to say next. Naruto got up and jokingly acknowledged, "Sure. It could be a date if you like. I imagine cooking dinner and cleaning the house for the two of us every day is very exhausting. I think you need a night out." She squeaked, "Oh." She summoned the bravery to look up at Naruto, whispering while staring into his eyes like a timid mouse, "Can it?" "Of course, Tsunami-chan." Naruto deftly brought his face close enough for Tsunami to feel his warm breath on her face, unintentionally luring her in with his seductive lips. "It can," he hummed reflectively, ignoring the anguish he felt at behaving in such a way with another woman at her side. At that moment, Naruto noticed that the image of Tsunami overlapped with that of a female Hyuga wearing a blood-stained blindfold. In an attempt to block out the eerie, acrid visions of another person, he failed. Naruto immediately pulled back and went to the sink to pick up the broken glass. He thought wistfully, "She reminds me of a mix of Hinata-chan and her." His gaze shifted back to his female companion, who was now scolding himself for not seizing the chance Obito had given her. She was brought back to the present by his voice. She bowed her head in shame and shook herself out of her daze before joining Naruto at the sink to wash the dishes as if they were a married couple. "We need to dry the dishes, you know, Tsunami-chan." After that, there was little conversation. The two went upstairs in silence. The moon did a wonderful job of lighting the way so that the two could easily navigate the house to their respective futons despite the darkness. The pitter-patter of Tsunami's movements was the only sound audible, as though the house itself was holding its breath. Naruto was on the verge of going to his room to rest when they reached the hallway. However, a woman's hand seized his arm before he could get inside. Naruto-kun. He widened his eyes and activated his Sharingan in surprise as he turned to see his companion with her luscious locks covering her face. The moonlight shining through the nearby window accentuated Tsunami's ethereal beauty, making her resemble her before she gave her life to save his own. The Uchiha shinobi's breath was stolen. Tsunami took a few steps to close the distance between them before Naruto could speak. She cautiously placed a delicate hand on Naruto's pointed cheek while watching his response. Naruto, meanwhile, chastised himself for drawing parallels between her and Tsunami. He closed his eyes and inhaled deeply, concentrating solely on the picture of Tsunami's sparkling black eyes. The collage of emotions in Tsunami's eyes, love, passion, hope, and determination, was expertly deciphered by the Sharingan. When Tsunami saw that Naruto wasn't being rejected, that must have been all the motivation she needed because she leaned in and gave him a kiss a moment later. Naruto's reaction to his first real kiss was unaffected by Tsunami's velvety soft lips and gentle kiss. His legs suddenly felt as though he was using ramen noodle legs rather than being tainted by the kiss involving Sasuke. He put his arms around her and gripped her modest pink nightgown to make this right. The duration of the simple kiss was unknown to Naruto. It might have been minutes, days, years, or even centuries. Nevertheless, almost reluctantly, Tsunami finally withdrew from him, ending the kiss. Before she hurried to her room and shut the wooden door, Tsunami's whispered words, "Good night, Obito-kun," and "Thank you," reverberated throughout the hallway. For several minutes, Naruto stood in the hallway, steadying himself and letting his labored breathing go while he absently put a finger to his lips. When he placed his hand on the door, he muttered, "No. Thank you, Tsunami-chan. For everything." A tear unexpectedly dropped from his right red eye and splattered softly to the wooden floor. "I apologize as well. Hanabi-chan. My lovely Yugo, moon, flower." Then, while the moon was still shining brightly on the house, he silently closed the door. When the sun rose, Naruto got out of his cozy futon and went to train to get his thoughts off of what had happened the night before. Naruto was welcomed by Fire Country's gentle, serene ambiance after writing a note to Tsunami asking him not to prepare him breakfast. Naruto quickly made his way to the Uchiha Training Ground 83, which was turning into his own training ground. Along the way, he politely greeted the different Uchihas he encountered. Even though he thought the Uchiha family was a bunch of pricks in his previous dimension, he was still amazed at how nice they were to him. Naruto used his developing sage mode to make sure he was alone as he entered the well-known grassland plains. Uchiha Kagami then handed him a scroll, which he opened. Raising an eyebrow at the unintelligible scrawls, Naruto muttered, "Kai," and made the ram sign out of habit, but to no avail. He used the Crimson Dojutsu after realizing he had something that was impervious to Genjutsu, and the scrawls changed into beautiful kanji. It said, "To Obito Uchiha, the Honorable Uchiha Elders have called you to the Naka Shrine at noon. The hand seals to open the barrier are snake, ram, monkey, boar, horse, snake, tiger. As you enter the shrine and lift the 7th tatami mat from the far right, you will see our powerful dojutsu encircled by a number of seals. Make sure no one can see you coming into or going out of the shrine. Moreover, there is no such message. The message was reduced to ashes with a swift cadence. Naruto looked up at the sky and saw that he had a few hours before he had to go to this secret meeting, so he patted down his clothes to get rid of the burnt paper flakes. He was on the verge of going to Team Minato's meeting spot but changed his mind. He chose to skip the session because it was clear that his presence would lead to arguments breaking out again. In the hopes that Kakashi Teme will treat him better, he might be there tomorrow. He instead concluded that it was time to keep honing his chakra affinities, particularly the Uchiha one. Naruto skillfully navigated through 26 seals, beginning with the tiger seal and concluding with the horse seal. Naruto learned to enjoy the familiar burn that came with a successful Kaden jutsu by kneading the fire chakra in his body. Naruto mumbled Kaden, Goka Mekyaku, fire release, majestic destroyer flame. While opening his mouth slightly, the red flame of devastation spread quickly over the training field, reaching a length of 35 meters, burning through the grasslands with ease. He checked his chakra reserves and scowled when he saw that a significant portion of them had been depleted by the jutsu. He was relieved that Kurama was no longer teasing him whenever he had the chance, but he was still irritated by the limited amount of chakra he had. It was still annoying that he had to be much more frugal with his jutsu, even though merging with Obito's body gave him much denser chakra that made all of his jutsu more devastating. Given his lack of wind affinity, he doubted he could do more than 2 if his new body could withstand the stress of futon. Rasen Shuriken, wind release. Spiraling Shuriken. He recognized that he needed to change and made the decision to focus on chakra control, which was his primary weakness from his previous life and would help him expand his jutsu repertoire. Using a kunai, he tried to turn the unbalanced metal object on the palm of his hand clockwise by applying a steady stream of chakra to it. When the kunai nearly struck his skull, he yelled a curse and pulled out another one to try again. Then his keen intuition told him that he was no longer alone. He received a yelp in return for sending the kunai hurtling into the bushes behind him. A peculiar Uchiha boy with short, disheveled black hair was staring at him with awe as he turned around. With a hint of irritation, Naruto asked, "What do you want now, Shisui?" As if Naruto weren't a few feet away, the boy yelled to him, "Teach me how to do that fire jutsu you just did." He pointed his finger at his face, mimicking what he would do to Jiraiya years later. Naruto put a pinky in his ear and sighed at how loud and incredibly annoying the brat was. Which revealed a great deal about him in the calm days before everything went wrong. Naruto uttered, "No Shisui." He went on when he noticed Shisui was going to object to the decision. "You can't even do the basic Kaden jutsu, so you wouldn't be able to do this jutsu either. Furthermore, you don't have enough chakra to do the technique." With his attitude known, the young Uchiha crossed his arms in rage and pouted, "But it's not fair. You can do that really cool Kaden technique and Itachi can do the Gokaku, fireball, and Itachi is 1 year younger than me while I'm 5 years old. It's not fair that everyone can shoot out fire except me." On the inside, Naruto was no longer as shocked by all the new little memories he absorbed from Obito every night that gave him fresh perspective on the boy's life. "And what about the other 30 children that I also teach along with you guys? Not all of them know how to do the Kaden, Gokaku no Jutsu, fire release, fireball technique." In his spare time, Obito taught Itachi and the Uchiha kids a lot of things in addition to helping the elderly. However, he was taken aback by the amount of community service Obito performed, and he began to question how far he had fallen if he had gone so far as to assist Itachi with the massacre. He questioned whether Obito hadn't murdered a couple of the children he had previously taught. Shisui objected, saying, but it's not fair." Shisui swiftly went on after noticing a raised eyebrow that looked like a question mark. "Itachi is just 1 year younger than me and he already is considered an adult since he can do the Gokaku jutsu. He is already really smart and talented and already has the Sharingan. And since he will be the future heir of the clan, everything is set in stone for him in life." The child breathed a sigh of relief. He just needs to walk through the streets and all the Uchiha will cater to his every whim since he will eventually lead the clan. Considering that Shisui was only 5 years old, Naruto was astounded by how much smarter the boy was than he was. He must have had a high level of intelligence or been a genius because he seemed so perceptive for his age. However, Naruto never heard of Uchiha Shisui rising to prominence in the bingo books or participating in the 4th Shinobi War alongside other well-known but lethal shinobis. Naruto came to the sad conclusion that there were two logical conclusions. Either this boy died before he could reach his full potential, or he was not properly trained and ended up as just another forgotten nobody during the Uchiha massacre or the war. Furthermore, he was merely another defenseless victim of Hashirama's botched experiment. Cynically, one side of him whispered. He shook his head angrily as he digested that idea. That is not the proper way or manner for him to think of the all-powerful Lord first. That line of reasoning appeared to be similar to Madara's, which was never encouraging for his or anyone else's health. Shisui grinned as his brotherly figure recognized his point of view. Yes, Itachi will be the future heir, and with that will come the extra perks. But tell me, Shisui, what makes a leader? With stars in his eyes, the boy exclaimed, a leader is someone who is so powerful that people follow him because he's cool. He is respected and remembered by all. That's what I want to be. Naruto responded wisely, as though he had had a similar discussion earlier in life. Indeed, those are all true. But he was a gullible young shinobi at the time. He had to make sure this boy didn't make the same mistakes he had made before. But most of all, a leader is someone who is forced to make hard decisions for the benefit of all. The Uchiha said, Huh, Shisui, if a man held your father and mother hostage and told you that only one was allowed to live and the other one had to die, who would you choose? Naruto shook his head and sighed, but San's dead, and San can kick anyone's ass, astute trousers. Then, how about your grandmother who is disabled? Replied Naruto. Your mother cannot defeat the shinobi without risking the possibility of endangering your frail grandmother. Who would you choose between them? Then I would use some awesome jutsu to burn the man into a crisp, the kid exclaimed. Naruto arched an eyebrow and asked, and if this man was an S-rank shinobi who could easily kill you just with his pinky finger? Well, then I would. The boy furrowed his brows in this position, reflecting. Shisui pondered for a few minutes before scowling in distress. The Uchiha boy rubbed his head angrily and muttered, I love them both, it's not fair. And that is what one day Itachi will be forced to do. As Naruto recalled the tangled history within the Uchiha clan, he may eventually be forced to make a tough decision between two things he greatly loves, and many, if not all the Uchihas, may not even agree to his decision at all. This is the mantle of responsibility that burdens leaders. Itachi cannot think for himself but for the greater whole. Then, how can I be respected by the clan if I can't choose between two hard decisions? Shisui asked after he had been thinking about it for a minute. In a friendly manner, Naruto tousled the boy's hair. You become strong. Work hard in your studies and learn from your mistakes. This is the most valuable quality any successful shinobi needs to succeed. And only then will people respect you for your power and skill. Come on, Shisui. I can help you with the Gokakyu Jutsu for a couple of hours before I have a meeting to attend. Naruto quickly left the training facility to search for a nearby lake. With remarkable agility, Shisui dashed to follow the swiftly vanishing figure. A silver-haired boy on the opposite side of Konoha scowled at Naruto's burnt hand as he was teaching Shisui the subtleties of Kaiden Jutsus. Kakashi Hatake was training by himself at Training Ground 142, one of the less well-known training grounds. Kakashi spent the entire night trying to mitigate the shortcomings of his first jutsu, the Chidori, lightning release. 1000 birds, which was based on the Rasengan, spiraling sphere, of Minato Sensei. He was primarily working on the tunnel vision problem. Despite its high fatality rate, it made this jutsu essentially useless in real combat. If an adversary saw the jutsu from a few feet away, they could easily dodge it and launch a counterattack. Given that his eyes could not adjust to seeing the surroundings when his body moved in a straight line at a very high speed, Kakashi would be helpless against this counterattack. Chidori could have been a one-hit kill S-rank jutsu if he had a dojutsu. However, Kakashi was now gradually coming to terms with the failure of his first creation. Ignoring the pain of his sensitive skin against the rough tree bark, he punched the tree with his lightning-cooked hand. The sense that he had failed was more painful. Once more, Kakashi wanted to avoid losing anyone he cared about again after his father killed himself after unintentionally starting the Third Shinobi War. He wanted to ensure that he had the ability to defend Kushina-san and Minato Sensei in the event of an emergency, so he moved swiftly through the shinobi ranks. Then, as he grew to like Obito and Rin, he wanted to protect them when they joined Team 7. In contrast to his disgraced family, Kakashi felt for the first time since his father's passing that he had a real family. With Rin as the middle sister, Obito as the obnoxious younger brother, and Minato and Kushina as parents, Kakashi was genuinely happy with his life. However, it was not intended to endure. Kakashi was devastated by Obito's untimely death because he witnessed his surrogate brother being murdered by that Iwajanin in front of him. A small voice in the back of his mind informed him that Obito would not have died if he had used that jutsu sooner, despite the fact that he exacted revenge on the fallen Uchiha. Kakashi trained day and night until he was immobile after returning home defeated. Before someone discovered him collapsed on the training ground and took him to the hospital, Kakashi performed jutsu after jutsu and kata after kata out of desperation, oblivious to the excruciating pain he was experiencing or how close he was to passing away. Kakashi grieved over everything as he stared at the gloomy white walls. His loss, his failure, his weakness, his pride, his shinobi rules, his arrogance, and everything else. He made the decision to follow Obito's advice and defend Team 7, Rin, in order to pay tribute to the Uchiha's pointless sacrifice, which could have been prevented with a different approach. When he saw one Obito Uchiha waltz back into the team as if it were a daily occurrence, he realized that none of it mattered at all. Kakashi was very angry at how nonplussed the others were, despite his happiness that Obito was back. Because Minato and Rin pretended that Obito had not passed away, Kakashi began to question whether all of the contemplation of his life in the hospital had been worthwhile. Death didn't seem like such a big deal. It seemed as though his father could have left him without even killing himself. His thoughts returned him to the million-Ryo question he asked himself every day. Then, why did Oto-san have to die? After avoiding Minato, Sensei, Kakashi, bewildered and lost, chose to spend his free time doing what he loved. Train. In order to permanently imprison all of the whirling emotions beneath a steel cage, train as hard as you can. However, that didn't work out because he was feeling more frustrated than ever. At the moment, he found himself in a bind. He would have to learn a whole jutsu from scratch because the Chidori was considered a failure, which could take years. How long would it take Minato Sensei to make his own Rasengan if he took 3 years to make the Rasengan? He needed something that would significantly improve his fighting ability, but it had to be quick because he or Rakudo Sennin, forbid the others, could lose this war. However, he was unable to find a way to improve his taijutsu because it was at a Jonin level. He lacked the creativity and patience necessary for genjutsus, and he had to wait until he was older in order to develop his kenjutsu. As a result, he was at a loss for what to do next. Furthermore, Minato Sensei's constant insistence on making the team participate in useless, teamwork exercises wasn't doing much to dissuade him. At times, the boy thought Minato Sensei had a tiny, sadistic side that liked to show during team practice. Kakashi made the decision to make better use of his time by, hopefully, finding a new teacher rather than attending the Team 7 daily meeting in the morning. While navigating the different shortcuts to return to the urban district as soon as possible, Kakashi noticed a familiar face of Konoha reading serenely from a scroll beneath a tree. Kakashi hid behind a bush and walked toward the person, gazing at the pale woman in the purple yukata. Orochimaru. This man, one of the 3 fabled Sannin, was an S-rank shinobi from Konoha who lived through the Second Shinobi War's infamous fight against Ames Hanzo. Jiraiya Sama, another Sennin who trained Minato Sensei, was his teammate. He was the ideal person Kakashi had been searching for. How can I now request that he accept me as a... The man in the clearing merely said, "Get out of the bushes." His gaze remained fixed on the scroll. Or there will be consequences. Kakashi swiftly gave in after realizing he had been caught and bowed deeply before the formidable shinobi. Orochimaru, Sama. After a brief moment of looking up, the Sannin's eyes resumed their consumption of the scroll's contents. "Oh, Minato's kid. Tell me, Hitaki, what do you want?" When he was called by his shamed family name, Kakashi suppressed his growl and said, "I wish to be your apprentice." The boy was still bowing in front of the S-rank shinobi when he looked up from his reading. He immediately noticed the burnt hand, bloodshot eyes, and filthy clothes. Without concealing his hatred for the yellow-haired ninja, Minato said, "Tell me, boy, the great Minato is your teacher. Why should I teach you? I already have shinobi of my own to teach." Although Kakashi didn't appear to be responding to Orochimaru's hatred of his sensei, he was incensed about the shinobi's combative behavior toward him. Ultimately, though, he maintained his composure. Since Jiraiya Sama wasn't always in the village in Hokage, Sama claimed that Tsunade Sama was on her long leave. This Sannin was still a wealth of opportunities even if he didn't like his current teacher. He had to make sure that he would never lose anyone again. Power. Kakashi's word, which broke the ice between them, demonstrated his unwavering will to get stronger. He went on, looking directly into the golden reptilian slit pupils that would give lesser shinobi nightmares. He boldly declared, "I need power. I need power so I can defeat someone like you." The final remark caused Orochimaru to hiss a little. Many would be angry at the young man who made such a claim, but he thought it was funny. He glanced back at the resolute eyes and inadvertently smiled at the same eyes he saw every day in the mirror while focusing on his present objective. He has a great deal of talent, and if he is determined, I can see that he could be a very helpful underling who could give me more information for an experiment. He seems like a better investment than Anko, and I believe that all I need to do is shape him into a fantastic assistant. Furthermore, I must always get the idiot to stop talking about Minato. You are quite amusing, but being a comedian won't make me teach you. I don't need another one to deal with. But, interrupted Kakashi. Orochimaru said, "Silence." The S-rank's entire killing intent was directed toward making Kakashi's face white. Orochimaru nodded his head in agreement when he noticed the boy waiting before it was his turn to speak. "Do not interrupt me again. As I was going to say, before you graciously interrupted me, I will teach you. But I require a test. A test that will allow me to see your determination." "A bell test?" Kakashi asked, realizing the reasoning. In the past, teachers frequently administered tests to their students in order to assess their strengths and weaknesses or determine whether they possessed particular qualities that the teacher desired. Orochimaru shook his head and said, "Nothing complicated like that. No, what I ask is simple. Gouge out your eye." The air was filled with silence, and then a scream broke the stillness. "What?" The scream didn't stop the S-rank shinobi from continuing. "My philosophy is this. Sacrifice is necessary for greatness. If I teach you, I will be able to make you into an S-rank shinobi just like your father. I don't doubt this, especially with your aptitude and lineage." "Then why? I asked you to get rid of your eye." "It's because I want to see if you have the willpower necessary to survive and flourish from my whole training. My training will put you through so much pain and suffering every day that stabbing your own eye out will seem pitiful in comparison. I will constantly make you break bones to mend them and then instantly break them again. I will increase your strength quadruple-fold by making you climb the most dangerous cliffs chakra, less. I will make you strong by making you run around with boulders that make you feel as if you have your clan house strapped on your back. I will increase your immunity by injecting you even with the deadliest Suna poisons that killed thousands. I will do all this and more to ensure that you one day will be more powerful as me. But to make sure all my effort isn't wasted, I want to make sure you want to truly become powerful and not some foolish idea that you conjugated in your head at a whim." When the Sennin spoke, Kakashi was rendered mute. From a morbid point of view, it made sense. Orochimaru's request tested your long-term dedication to a cause, in contrast to the bell test, which evaluated your capacity for intense teamwork. Was Kakashi trying to pass a test, though? At first, the silver-haired boy believed he had to decipher some sort of hidden statement or meaning. But as soon as he saw the man's brilliant golden eyes, which made it abundantly evident that the man in front of him truly wanted him to stab his eye out, that idea was dismissed. However, is it worthwhile? He pulled out a kunai and chose the eye on his left non-dominant side. His left eye stared directly at the trembling obsidian weapon, saw his face reflected on it, and pointed the weapon's edge at its target. It was not the stoic, self-assured shinobi Kakashi took so much pride in being. Rather, it was his expression when he discovered his father's lifeless body in the house. It was the expression of a boy who was afraid and lost in the harsh realities of life. He swore he would never again have that face. In less than a year, he has already betrayed his own promise. A wandering thought came to him absently. Should I just stay with Minato sensei, perhaps? However, sincere rationalism crushed that idea. Orochimaru Sama is stronger than Minato sensei. In contrast to Minato sensei, who just got his S rank 2 weeks ago, Orochimaru Sama is a feared shinobi who has killed hundreds of other shinobi and contributed significantly to Konoha's war effort in both the previous and current conflicts. Regardless of how much training he received from one of the legendary Sannin, Minato's power was nothing compared to theirs. In addition, Kakashi happened upon a once-in a lifetime opportunity. It took a long time to consider the advantages and disadvantages of the offer. However, judging by the impatient frown that marred the Sennin's face, there wasn't much time. Something had to be decided on the spot. Kakashi was about to take the kunai away from his face, cocking the weapon slightly downward. There are other options, after all. With hope, he thought. But before he could, his thoughts inadvertently returned to the obvious sequence of events that resulted in Obito dying, with a resolute smile. The Iwa Jonin employed a jutsu that caused the cave to collapse around the three of them while they were inside. Kakashi and Obito led the way as they made their way to the cave's entrance, navigating the falling rocks with ease because none of them were seriously hurt. However, before they could accomplish this, Rin stumbled as a boulder fell close by, causing the ground to tremble. The Jonin only needed that split second to send a boulder directly on top of Rin after she stumbled, crushing her. Obito, however, was determined to keep his crush safe. He grabbed Rin and hurled her out of the cave as he ran back to her. The boulder landed directly on top of the Uchiha when the two rewinded time. There was a sickening crunch, and blood was flying everywhere. More rocks fell, sealing off the cave before they could rush back to lift the boulder off their teammates. The Hitaki thought it was ironic that he called Obito a coward whenever the Uchiha sobbed, despite the fact that he was the more courageous of the two because he smiled while looking death in the face. "Come on, Kakashi. Teme. What are you so scared about?" he said, closing his eyes and picturing the familiar. Looking Obito with the orange goggles and that dumb, obnoxious smile. Yes. Kakashi thought. For what reason am I afraid? In the future, I could always get another eye. It wasn't for nothing that I sulked in the hospital. Above all, I am a true shinobi. I love to be hurt and to be hurt. On that day, I made the decision that my loved ones would never suffer. Now, I won't betray that pledge. The black eyeball opened his left eye and gazed at the kunai without flinching. The little silver-haired shinobi inhaled deeply, oblivious to the Sanin's widening but warped smile, which would have sent Jiraiya running to a gay bar with joy. He swiftly brought the weapon up to his face. Then, before everything turned black, Kakashi's world erupted in agony. Rin Nohara was unaware of her white-haired teammate's recent injury in another part of Konoha. She was at the Konoha library with Kurenai Yuhi, another academy classmate, rather than meeting with Team 7, as the rest of her teammates did. She made the decision to start the second part of her plan first after failing to locate Obito last night. However, she was unaware that the ascent to strength was more difficult than it appeared. She certainly wasn't getting any stronger with medical ninjutsu. She lacked the time to begin developing immunity to poisons she could make and the agility to use the chakra scalpels effectively in close quarters. Tsunade Sama didn't know where to begin in order to quickly reverse engineer the Sanin's legendary super strength in time for the upcoming Team 7 deployment, which might take place in a few days, since she didn't have access to her personal journals. It was becoming pointless to go through the different medical texts. She decided she needed a break and took a stroll around Konoha after becoming a little frustrated by the lack of progress. She met Kurenai, her friendly friend, there. It appears that her fellow kunoichi shared her sentiments, feeling helpless in the face of her teammates' strengths. Asuma Sarutobi and Rado Namiyashi. Asuma's declaration to the team that he would protect her was met with a genjutsu that would give the red-eyed kunoichi migraines for the rest of the day, which further infuriated the red-eyed kunoichi. Since Kurenai's goal was to become a strong, independent kunoichi, she did not enjoy Asuma watching her. It was not going to help to be babied by the son of the Hokage. Since both girls had very high chakra control and used yin release for their jutsus, they decided they could help each other get better after finding themselves in a similar situation. However, they were surprised by how simple it was for them to collaborate. Following 2 hours of exchanging different techniques that significantly expanded their jutsu repertoire, they spent the third hour in the library, where they combined Rin's medical knowledge with Kurenai's natural genjutsu knowledge to create a new jutsu. Kurenai asked her friend, "So what do you want to call the genjutsu since you came up with the idea?" "What? No, you did the most work since you needed to figure out the hand signs for the genjutsu." Rin responded with modesty. "Yes, but you gave me an idea for the genjutsu. You were the one who pointed out that if someone was repeatedly exposed with the same stimulus over a period of time, your brain would eventually ignore the stimulus." Kurenai responded with patience. "But that was just some random comment I made about our brain getting used to too much stimulus like our eyes ignore our noses since we see it every day. I didn't know you would expand that idea into an actual genjutsu. But still, I didn't think I would be able to invent a C-rank jutsu so early. This has so many different applications like escaping a prison or trying to trick guards. It practically uses little chakras since it just speeds up a natural process of the brain." Kurenai cheerfully replied while leaning back on the seat. "That's why you should be the one to name my first created jutsu. I would never have thought of this by myself." Rin threw her hands up in frustration and sighed. "Okay. Let's call the jutsu genjutsu. Phantomuzan. Genjutsu. Phantom Zone." "Really, Phantom?" the shinobi with the red eyes joked. "All right. Then you give the foolish jutsu a name." Kurenai smiled and waved her hands in front of her, saying, "No, it's okay. I'm naming the next jutsu we create together Phantomuzan. The next one should mention flowers in some way, in my opinion." "Okay. Rin, you're terrible at coming up with original names." "Sure." Rin felt a lot stronger and was thrilled that she had learned some basic genjutsu that she could use on her next mission, so that was a positive step in her book. However, before she could thank her friend, Kurenai interrupted her without realizing it. "So, did you see the new hottie in town?" Rin rolled her eyes and sighed at Kurenai's tendency to be gossipy, which was a far cry from her sometimes strict shinobi demeanor. She occasionally questioned which of her two personalities, the gossiping girl or the serious shinobi, was her true self, but she chose to indulge her companion, who? Kurenai hastily took out a magazine with a number of attractive boys posing on the cover, turned the magazine so Rin was facing it, and flipped through a few pages before saying, "Him." "What? Oh, it's Obito.kun," Rin said absently as her eyes feasted on the two-page image detailing her teammate with a Konoha headband around his neck. His long dark hair with strands of white fell over his smoldering dark coal-black eyes and contrasted the simple light blue versus neck tee, shirt and navy blue pants he wore. She applauded whoever took the picture because the sun was in the perfect position to highlight the glistening beads of sweat rolling down his broad chest. Her appreciation of the image continued before it finally dawned on her on exactly who was in the recent edition of Konoha's Women magazine. Secrets. What? Obito-kun is inherent, but why? Rin quickly turned around when the librarian nearby threw a book at her head, and she saw an elderly woman giving her the stink eye. She understood the message and bowed her head in apology, then turned back to see Kurenai holding the magazine and licking her lips as he took in the new Obito's image. The deceased last? Kurenai traced Obito's muscular arms in the magazine with her finger and said, "I wouldn't mind if he wants to teach me a thing or two." Her tone became more primal as she asked, her eyes never leaving the paper, "He definitely doesn't look like a dead last anymore." "Kurenai, please don't start having feelings for my teammate," Rin hissed softly at her friend. "A week ago, he returned from a mission that could have ended his life." "Yes, indeed." Kurenai rolled her eyes and then looked directly at Rin, saying, "I also happened to notice that was when you were all over Konoha looking for your teammate. You already told me all about it. Do you want to share something with me?" "What?" Kurenai. No. Rin let out a frustrated sigh and said, "I just wanted to say sorry to him since I almost missed the chance when he almost died in that mission. For Sennin's sakes, there is nothing between us. And you didn't want to snag the hottie, which fortunately happens to be your teammate, before he gets back into the market?" Kurenai asked, raising an eyebrow in a gesture of disbelief. "The likelihood of that occurring is similar to the possibility of Sarutobi and I getting married and eventually having a child. It will not occur. Without a doubt." She leaned forward and cupped a hand, whispering, "So tell me, how good was he in bed?" Kurenai. For Rin's troubles, the librarian threw a dictionary at her head. In this secret meeting, a Uchiha elder sat across from one Uchiha Obito and said in a gruff but grandmotherly voice, "Open your true eyes, child, and show me you mark of strength." As it brutally dissected the black-haired boy, a single red Sharingan eye rotated menacingly from her eye socket. The elder in front of him appeared to be a weak person. Her liver spots and white hair adorned what might have been a lovely face that contained two working Sharingan eyes. She was now merely an elderly Uchiha with one white eye and one working eye, signifying her left-sided blindness. However, she didn't appear to be the elderly, fragile grandmother who required help carrying groceries to her house. No, Naruto could sense how much chakra was lying dormant in that body. It was huge. It was the Uchiha elder in front of him, shaped like an ocean of chakra. To someone who was aptly attuned to nature, her very presence smacked of madness and suffering, especially for someone who had lived through the savage warring states period before it gave way to the glorious period when Konoha was established and constructed. She wasn't alone, either. In this hidden chamber, 5 other Uchiha elders gave Obito amiable gestures and disarming smiles. It only belied the gallons of sweet, tangy blood that repeatedly stained each person crimson, though, as Naruto soon discovered, Obito had a personal connection to each of the 6 elders seated in this room. Once again, Naruto's personality came to life when he felt the impulse to call the person who smelled of death Hitomi.Ba-chan. However, as he developed his senjutsu in his new body, he increased his passive sensor ability, which made him more and more disgusted by these people. Hell, could they really still be considered human? Even though there was no such system in place at the time, Naruto was gradually coming to understand that these were the real S-rank shinobi. In a world full of ongoing conflict, these 6 elderly Uchihas might have been among the greatest ninjas the Uchiha clan has ever produced. These elders were once lethal shinobi and kunoichi who flourished and thrived in that genocidal era, while many others lost their lives in their heroic struggle to survive and try to live another day. They all compared Uchiha Madara to a saint because of the volume of blood they each shed. Madara attempted, in his own misguided way, to bring about peace, but Naruto could tell by the aura of each elder that they only wanted their own goals to succeed, regardless of the suffering and sacrifice they caused to others. However, since they were the second largest power block in the Uchiha clan after the Uchiha clan head family, Naruto could not do anything to avoid them, no matter how much he despised them. He had the good fortune to engage with these monsters because Obito's personality served as a handy buffer. He did, however, grant her wishes. Hai-Ba Chan. As chakra was poured into his eyes, they quickly transformed into 3 Tomo form and then into the intricate yet calming pinwheel Mangekyo Dojutsu. When Uchiha Hitomi drew her head closer for a closer look, a wrinkly hand lightly touched Naruto's chin. As she marveled at the upgraded Sharingan's distinctive signature, she failed to notice Naruto's natural jerk to avoid touching her appendage. She spoke aloud to her coworkers, pulling back when she noticed his slight visible discomfort, which only a Uchiha would unconsciously display. He definitely has it. It seems like great times are destined for the Uchiha once more. Another elder, a man this time who was completely blind and had 2 pale eyes, said, "Undoubtedly. This is an auspicious sign from Rakudo Sennin himself. We haven't had one since the duo awoken theirs 10 years ago. Every elder in this room has or has had the Mangekyo Sharingan," Naruto realized with a sinking feeling. This raised the question of why the internal variants were absent from them. He was shocked that they were unable to locate someone who had a close eye-related relationship. An additional white bearded blind man balled his fist. "In answer to Danzo's little parade, we have, it seems, show off the powers of this clan to the uneducated masses. We shall, once more." An austere woman said, "I still don't think we can trust that ignorant fool. Not with that blasted Senju filling up his student minds with his lies." Arrogance oozed from the last elder's voice as he said, "But that's what the Senju bastard wants to do. To debilitate us." He turned back to look at Obito with one red Sharingan eye that somewhat intimidated Naruto. "He gets the last laugh even after death. And that is why we always win in the end. We just needed to wait till the right moment. And that moment is now." Typical Senju arrogance. "Huh?" Naruto asked himself quietly, absorbed in this obscure discussion. However, it sounded as though everyone in the room could hear him. "Tell me, Obito-kun, do you know the details surrounding our current situation in this war?" Uchiha Hitomi asked Naruto in a disarming tone. No," Naruto stammered, caught off guard by the abrupt shift in the conversation's subject. He was still in shock that Madara appeared to be a nicer person than these people. With her lone eye fixed directly on Naruto's eyes, she responded abruptly, "We are losing." Naruto said, slowly taking in the remark, "What? But, aren't we winning? Konoha is losing in this battle of attrition. We are being pressed on all sides. Iwa and Kumo are marching closer and closer to Konoha every day while proving irritatingly elusive for our forces. Kiri, on the other hand, is wrecking our supply lines from the coast. With Suna officially joining in the fight against us after deciding that playing neutral won't allow them to get a share of the rewards, Konoha is destined to fall in months. BU. And the opportunists are out for blood. More and more factions are appearing out of the woodwork, each wanting to carve out a piece of fire country for themselves. In short, this war marks the end of Konoha itself. And with it, the Uchiha. WH. He was utterly taken aback by the fact that Konoha wasn't triumphing as the history textbook, Konoha. Beautiful Foundations, which Naruto had been made to read as a child, predicted. He became aware that he was no longer in the past, and a sinking pit began to form in his stomach. Because he was in a completely different dimension, everything he learned in the future was completely pointless. It goes without saying that if Naruto had listened to Iruka's lecture during the Academy's second day, he would have discovered that the history textbook Naruto was using to learn about the 3 Shinobi Wars was utterly false. The history textbook did not cover all the crucial information that any Shinobi or Academy student needed to know because it was designed to teach the fundamentals of history to civilians. But because of budget cuts made by the council elders, the Academy was running low on funds and had to buy Konoha. Beautiful Foundations, one of the most affordable and up.to date history textbooks in bulk. Coincidentally, Naruto once skipped class to play a practical joke on a store owner who refused to give him some instant ramen. He could have heard Ichiraku recount the Third Shinobi War from his own first-hand experience if he had stayed an additional 10 minutes. He did a fantastic job that day of giving the kids a detailed explanation of the real war effort, which gave the conflict a very different perspective than the textbook did. The lesson that day ended with the advice to always take things with a grain of salt, including information. However, Naruto, and possibly the others as well, failed to learn that crucial lesson, and as a result, our somewhat gullible protagonist was unaware that the current war crisis Konoha is facing is exactly the same one that his Konoha faced in his timeline. Well done, Naruto. You came to the incorrect conclusion that you are in an entirely different dimension. You will have more headaches in the future. Let's toast. Anyway, let's return to the narrative. Naruto stammered, B. The elder said calmly, as though she weren't discussing a serious topic with Naruto over a cup of tea. But with the ascendancy of your eyes, we can stop this disgraceful tide of war. And that's why we need to take the appropriate steps to make sure that the Uchiha stay on top. So tell me, Obito, are you willing to do what is necessary? For Konoha? For the Uchiha? As Naruto quickly processed the barrage of information that Obito's Ba-chan had given him, a hush fell over the room. Konoha would not win. Konoha was about to tumble, and with Konoha gone, everyone, Kakashi, Rin, Minato, Makoto, Itachi, Shisui, Kagami, and so on, was either going to perish or suffer. Everyone was going to die, including the young Uchiha kids Naruto enjoyed playing and tutoring in his spare time, as well as the generous Uchiha Tayaki who provided him with free food. As Naruto's thoughts drifted back to the day of the screaming clamor that filled the air when the Confederate shinobi drove the Allied shinobi forces out of their final stronghold in Fire Country, Konoha, he concluded grimly, Iwa and Kumo are getting closer and closer, and when they do, it will be hell. On that fateful day, hundreds perished, but thousands more suffered the loss of friends and family. Above all, though, she might not survive. Naruto came to a logical conclusion. Naruto was slowly but surely falling in love with Suzuki Tsunami, the sweet but benevolent woman, after he had finally moved on from his first true love. In this violent and gloomy world, her innocence was his warm, inviting light. No, he couldn't and wouldn't let another down. Or he would. As the Uchiha blood inside him sang of possessiveness, eyes that had been tormented with grief and indecision following Kakashi's obvious rejection sharpened into gems of pure determination. It appears that I will have to fight my future allies, but nobody will hurt Tsunami. Chan. She will be secure. She must be secure. Naruto made the decision to break through the quiet atmosphere first. What do I need to do? He asked, feeling his chakra hum with anticipation, not knowing what it was that Naruto would make sure he fulfilled this promise. Or, like Zabuza on the battlefield, he would commit seppuku and transport as many people as he could to the afterlife. He thought she was worth that much. The elders began to murmur quietly, but Hitomi quickly snapped her fingers to silence them. Then she described her strategy. In Konoha's leadership, there is a man who can give you the most important yet dangerous missions to allow you to change the tide of the war and bring the Uchiha back to prominence once more. Who? Naruto asked hastily, hanging on to everything she said, frantically. Her response was tinged with a hint of distaste. Shimura Danzo. Recalling one of the two individuals he wished to stay away from in this new dimension, Naruto's face was covered in blood. Naruto did not want to be in the same room as Danzo, despite the fact that the information that was currently available about him was highly ambiguous. Sai's wonderful personality is proof of that. With a nod of approval, she said, so you heard the rumors. But nevertheless, we must ally with him. He recently created a Black Ops program called Root, and the Hokage is requiring all clans to have at least one B-rank member minimum in this program. And as foolish as the name may sound, I can absolutely guarantee that any individuals of high aptitude will enter the program. What? He was supposed to steal orphans, right? However, in this new world, my information might be inaccurate. Naruto shook his head in thought. When he had some free time, he would have to learn how this world differed from his. Wouldn't it be better if I stayed with Minato? Sensei? He inquired. She said with a gleam in her eye, daring Naruto to correct her in front of her. No, Danzo can allow you to access more resources and leverage that Namikaze-san could ever provide you with. We have recently heard of your destructive practice sessions. With you being confirmed as an A-rank shinobi by the Hokage himself, staying on that team will only serve to hold you back. Something, it seems, your team is already doing. When Naruto recognized that his covert training sessions were no longer, well, covert, he scowled. The bright side of all of this is that she thought he was concealing his actual skills until he recently unlocked the Mangekyo Sharingan, so he could use the same justification if someone ever had doubts about his recent power boost. So why don't you get someone else? Naruto knew that Danzo would offer a far better chance to find Madara, but he didn't want a rock to take the place of his lively personality. Angrily, one of the elders interrupted, "Why you?" and was silenced by a quick jab from the elder next to him. Without expressing her own annoyance at Obito's obstinacy, Hitomi concluded that the existing path was ineffective. She made the quick decision to shift the subject a bit in order to get Obito to be more open to their suggestions. "Did you know that Danzo wanted Itachi to enter Root?" "What?" she continued. "Itachi isn't ready for such a program, yet Danzo demands the Uchiha must send their finest since we lost little compared to the other clans. Yet, this would only desiccate the golden path our future heir has already started on. While he is prodigious in many disciplines, the Uchiha cannot sacrifice the next clan head to some outsider's whim. And moreover, he wants the other children to enter. Shisui, Miku, Dai, Kenshin, now, Murasaki." Hot pain flared as she started to list the names of the different Uchiha kids that Obito, and now Naruto, started teaching. When Uchiha Hitomi clinically listed an increasing number of children to be sent on the battlefield prematurely, where the majority would die and the remainder would be physically or mentally broken by the destructive battlefields of Shinobi World Wars, Naruto became enraged, despite the tiny smiles of the other people in the room. In addition, Danzo desired all of the kids she listed as his students. "Danzo can look at mine all he wants if he truly wants the Sharingan. He will not, however, dare to come close to any of my pupils. Or I'll kill him, burn the jerk to ashes, conceal his remains in a ditch, then turn the ditch into a fucking swamp, fill it with water, and..." With his activated Mangekyo Sharingan rotating endlessly in agreement, Naruto responded hotly, "I'll join Root." He was internally appalled at the darkness of that line of thought. "Before something else occurs, I must leave this place. My senjutsu ability is somehow allowing their auras to infect me. Fuck." The elders all gave a nod of approval. When Naruto realized the meeting was over, he shamelessly disregarded protocol and got up to go. He swiftly committed to memory the imprints on the stone tablet that Madara mentioned in his captivating monologues after stealthily glancing at the tablet at the end of the room with his still active Mangekyo Sharingan. He would study the text later when it was convenient for him, but for now he had to get out of here as quickly as possible. But Hitomi spoke again before he could do so. "There is one more thing you must do. For the clan." Naruto turned around and gritted his teeth. What? He had to get out quickly. There was a serious issue with him, and he needed to find the solution quickly. "You need to impregnate the most powerful Uchiha woman currently available as per the contract you signed when you agreed to become a Konoha shinobi and unlocked the Mangekyo Sharingan. Violation of this contract leads to immediate removal of Sharingan and possible execution as stated in Article 2, Section 5. Attempts to resist can include suppression with extreme prejudice, extraction of sperm forcefully, and barred from entering your biological child's life." Naruto exclaimed, "Huh?" as all of the earlier nervousness vanished in an instant. All he could do was blink as Hitomi's words were slowly and circuitously translated in his mind. She tossed him a plain folder that contained a few papers. "Here is all the information that you need to know about Uchiha Seiko. Congratulations. I hope to see some children running around soon. WH." As he instinctively grabbed the bundle of documents containing all of Uchiha Seiko's details. But since Obito knew the man well, he didn't need any of it. Shisui's mother, Uchiha Seiko, was a very deadly swordswoman and widow in her own right. Before she retired, she was rumored to be close to becoming an S-rank kunoichi. She repeatedly sent one white-haired pervert to the emergency room and stabbed almost anyone who looked at her in a lewd manner. He could only think of one thing. "Why me, Rakudo Sennin?" With a charming yet persuasive tone, she said, "Now, you can go. And make sure you treat her well. Understood?" Naruto's mind shut down as he alternated between staring at her and the folder a few times. He was holding sheets of paper that contained information about his future wife, which his clan had arbitrarily provided for him. His mind was in utter chaos, so he turned around and robotically left the hidden room. "Senjutsu influence is somehow corrupting me, and the more astounding. I need to have a kid with Shisui's mom," were the two thoughts that were going through his head at the same time. Regardless of the attention he received, he let out all of his frustrations by screaming one word into the sky as he left the shrine. FFFFFFFFFF Fook CCCCCCCCCKKKKKKKKKKK. The elders paused their conversation until the shouting subsided and the foot traffic gradually subsided. "I know that making the boy enter Danzo's graces was the plan. But was it really necessary to lie to the boy about how close Konoha is to losing? We are at a stalemate against the other 4 great nations. It doesn't seem like it would end anytime soon, although we are at a slight disadvantage. But we aren't losing per se with all the attrition the other nations are facing. The austere elder repeated the axiom, the best lies always have a hint of truth. As the genjutsu surrounding her one working eye broke, revealing a black triangle etched on the red bleeding eye before the entire eye turned pale white, Hitomi responded, indeed. Obito clearly doesn't trust us for some reason. It may be a byproduct of unlocking his Mangekyo or dancing so close to death. But it won't matter how much he tries to resist us. Koto Amatsukami, distinguished heavenly gods, ensures that even the worst lies becomes the very truth. Without a hint of regret, the white bearded elder continued, but a necessary truth, it is. To reap the fruits of our success, the future Uchiha will. Planted the seed, we have. Wait for the next generation, we shall. Then, return, our light will, for the great sage shall guide us. Hitomi gazed blindly at the spot where the stone tablet was sitting menacingly by the wall and said, certainly. And then, infinite Tsukuyomi can blossom, once more, as he foretold. The other elders recited in solemn unison, as he foretold. Naruto hurried back to training ground 40 with the pond, where Shisui was joyfully blowing fist-sized fireballs across the water, while he looked at the folder he was holding, which felt much heavier than it should have. He sent the carefree boy to collect all the adorable little Uchiha children because he really didn't want to think about the complicated mess that Obito had somehow gotten him into. He pulled out blank scrolls and brushes and sat on the burnt, muddy grass to wait. He began writing the instructions for a jutsu that he was very familiar with from his previous dimension, with the help of a certain Kage Bunshin. No matter how many issues he was dealing with at the moment, most recently, having to have a child soon, he had to make sure that his students, who were being poached by someone high up like Danzo, would be well protected on their own. The only thing entering route would ensure was that he could no longer watch them. Therefore, it is necessary to implement several preventative measures. Naruto rolled his final scroll with a click and set it atop the small hill he had constructed out of the scrolls. When he heard heavy footsteps, he turned to see the first group of Uchiha children running towards him, dispelling the last of the Kage Bunshin. Obito-san, Oni, Chan, leader, Sama, boss. As they gathered around him, a variety of Uchiha children, ranging in age from 4 to 10, joyfully shouted. With the aid of Obito's recollections, he raised one of the local young girls, Akame, into the air. Faster, faster. She yelled at him, laughing, and grinned broadly as he whirled around holding the girl. Uchiha Akame pouted as an older boy took her place and put her down. When Obito picked up Uchiha Kenshi, she and the other kids watched in awe. The boy then screamed with delight as Naruto threw him into the air, only to catch him and throw him up once more. Playing with the different kids while he waited for the others to arrive, Naruto silently made a commitment to remember every child in his arms that Obito knew. The list was endless and included Kiku, Ryota, Sakurako, Yua, Kazuo, and Aoi. It is possible that he will never see these students again. A few minutes later, he saw Shisui and Itachi, the 2 final kids, coming toward him. Attention, he yelled, setting Uchiha Shun on the ground. After everyone heard the order, the kids scurried around like chickens without heads to find the students they were supposed to sit next to. One day, in order to teach the younger and shorter children the fundamentals of the henge, transformation jutsu, Obito thought it would be a good idea to set up an outdoor classroom with the taller and older children in the back and the younger and shorter children in the front. Naruto approached the final 2 kids who were sitting on the grass. He paced back and forth in front of his audience as he started his speech, waiting for everyone's full attention. Uchiha Rangers, today, I have called a meeting today because I have something important to tell you. The children immediately started whispering to each other in an attempt to predict Obito's next words. He went on, waiting for the silence to subside. I would like to inform you that the Uchiha clan requests that I will join a super-secret shinobi program. Ooh! The younger children exclaimed excitedly to each other, while the older children, as experience always required, waited calmly for the other shoe to drop. But that means I will be out on the battlefield more often to do more dangerous missions, and thus, I won't have much time to teach you anymore. The children were enveloped in an awkward silence. Naruto hurried on after hearing the younger audience members start to sniffle. There was no doubt that he did not want to deal with children who were crying. He had enough experience with that from his time as a D rank. That is why. Today, I want to give you all something very important. As a farewell gift from me, I will give you all the instructions for a very strong jutsu for your arsenal. a very useful A-rank jutsu. He extended his right hand, palm up, and allowed his chakra to flow through his arm. The chakra greedily shaped itself into a red sphere composed entirely of chakra, a shape he and his adversaries were well acquainted with. Rasengan, spiraling sphere, Naruto whispered softly, but everyone could clearly hear it. He gave the kids a soft smile as he heard their gasps and ahs, as his Sharingan eagerly attempted to unravel the sphere's mysteries while attempting to ignore the animated but excited Shisui beside him. Even the stoic Itachi was vibrating with excitement in his seat. Many of the older ones will be joining the battlefield in a few years, but he would prefer to spend the time imparting valuable philosophies. They would benefit greatly from this jutsu. In the future, he could only hope that everyone would come back here for class. However, he was aware that not everyone would return. He briefly activated his Sharingan, letting its photographic memory recall this relaxed picture of all his pupils before him with ease. He would try to bring the war to a swift conclusion. And despite his misgivings, he would enter route if that was the best course of action. Ultimately, the goals outweigh the means. As he went on, they presented a scroll to each child, further thrilling them by calling forth a sealless cage bushin. These scrolls have the step.by step instructions on how to perform this jutsu. However, it requires very good chakra control, so make you start practicing your chakra control. If you can do tree walking, try practicing walking on water. If you can do that easily, then walk on jagged cliffs. Chakra control is very important for any shinobi, so make sure you always practice. Is that clear, Uchiha Rangers? Yes, sir, exclaimed the children, joyfully clutching their scroll. Good. Class dismissed. Naruto, Obito smiled warmly when he saw the children running excitedly back home. I am and will continue to fight for this. For Team 7 to survive, for Tsunami to be safe, and for the kids who never experienced childhood. Everything is done for Konoha's benefit. Naruto hopped on top of a nearby tree with ease after putting chakra into his legs. His chakra swiftly carried his legs to a familiar rock after he quickly spotted the object of desire in a patch of grass. It was just as significant to Naruto, even though it didn't have as many names as it did in his dimension or as many cracks that suggested its age. Naruto traced with his finger the calming, smooth grooves of the names of the many shinobi who sacrificed their lives for this village. When Konoha fell in his world, the real heroes were lost in the sands of time. I'm sorry, but I'll kill your future shinobi, Gaara, Onoki, and Mei. Because under my supervision, Konoha cannot risk falling a second time. I apologize, but the Shinigami will not have anything for me. For a minute, Naruto gazed at the memorial stone, enjoying the peaceful ambiance that was occasionally broken by the sounds of birdsong. The tranquility that could only be achieved by the innumerable sacrifices made by these honorable kunoichi and shinobi in order to maintain Konoha's victory in every conflict to date. Naruto quickly made his way back home to prepare for his date with Tsunami. Bowing in remembrance of the fallen, he would contribute to keeping Konoha at the top. Madara was able to wait. How can I tell Tsunami, Chan the news now? He never heard the soft voice murmuring in his mind as he walked away from the monument. Although the Shinigami might not pardon you, I will. Excellent work, my instrument. You are on the road to salvation, so you have already taken the initial steps toward the zenith hour, my deliverance. A shadowed figure gazed at the great Kyuubi's former home, a huge, immaculate Fuin cage, while two simple Sharingan eyes glowed in the darkness. What had once been 3 tomo rotating in each eye rippled into a long, forgotten Mangekyo Sharingan pattern that danced frantically in the murky darkness with a slight twitch of the index finger. 3 straight bars protruded from the center of the eye's enlarged pupil. They then underwent even more evolution. Ni-san, I never had the chance to thank you. As the pattern once again shifted to show concentric ripples with 9 endless twirling tomo in each eye, the figure murmured to himself in the shadows. The man lifted his arm and rested his palm lightly against one of the cage's bars. The enigmatic figure withdrew and watched stoically as the bar, which had once fended off the most powerful Bijuu's destructive power, began to rot and turn black. I never got to express my gratitude for everything. As Naruto crept into his home, his tenant upstairs welcomed him with a calming humming. Sensing he had little time to get ready, he set his financial papers on the dinner table and hurried upstairs. Though he wasn't sure if something as fragile as paper would withstand the journey, he would prefer to leave the folder in his Kamui dimension. After entering his bathroom, he washed his face with a white towel. He then applied a thin layer of light brown cream to his palm. The Uchiha sat in front of his bathroom mirror, carefully concealing the numerous wrinkles and microscopic areas of stress that his face had developed. Working quickly but silently, He found and covered any flaws on his face with ease using his Sharingan. Naturally, any of the traditional-minded Uchiha would have likely died of a heart attack if they had known that Naruto was using their powerful Sharingan for something as unimportant and commonplace as applying makeup. When I think about it, it's actually quite humorous. As he adorned himself, the former Uzumaki shinobi pondered amusingly. Throughout my life, I never imagined that I would ever be willing to wear makeup. He shut off the dojutsu and checked his face one last time in the mirror to make sure he hadn't applied too much cream, which would have made his skin appear off color. Perhaps Ino-chan was right when she said at the academy that a girl had to look her best to the teme. After fixing a few flaws, Naruto was happy with the way he looked. The time traveler walked back to his bedroom and knelt down to open the cabinet's bottom drawer, which held kimonos and yukatas of all colors. It once held Obito's old clothing, but Naruto generously chose to donate it to the local orphanage because it didn't fit and also seemed a little tacky. Searching through his newly acquired collection of pricey shinobi grade silk garments, which consumed some of the remaining money Obito had saved, he selected a dark purple yukata with black maple leaf accents. He reasoned that he would eventually be able to take on missions of a higher rank, which would allow him to earn a lot more ryo. He pondered why he hadn't purchased these fantastic, cozy, fashionable, and epic garments sooner after seeing the yukata he had chosen. In addition to confirming to me that the teme did have a thing for men, perhaps the teme learned something valuable from leaving Konoha for the snake bastard. The idea made Naruto laugh. I had to get back on course, though. Naruto, keep your focus. After checking the yukata to make sure there were no loose strands, he dug through his silk collection and took out a dark blue belt and obi. Yes. This combination looks fantastic. The teme and Yugo-chan would agree. After putting on the yukata with ease and securing the belt and obi around his body like a pro, Naruto took another look at his depressing reflection. Staring back was a face that had nothing in common with his Uzumaki ancestry. He proudly inherited his father's short, yellow hair, which was now long and banal black with a few gray strands woven in and neatly secured in a short ponytail. Furthermore, he no longer had the whiskers that proudly identified him as Kurama's friend and Jinchuriki. His world as Uzumaki Naruto vanished into dust, along with his past and future. Assuming they are born, none of his friends would be born for another decade or more. All Naruto had left in this new alien world was Uchiha Obito's identity, his knowledge, and his own self-centered ambition. There was nothing else left. With the force of one of Lee's Super Dynamiku Entori, super dynamic entry, a flood of emotions slammed into him, causing tears to begin to pool in his eyes. A huge, overwhelming wave of grief, agony, and rage that threatened to swallow him up in their darkness began to build up from the emotions he had been trying so hard to bury ever since he arrived here. Can I still be referred to as Uzumaki Naruto? My soul, my identity, is evolving. Now that everything I've worked so hard to achieve is gone, I'm alone once more. Should I give it another go? Or should I give up and pass away right away? Naruto found it challenging to respond to what should have been a simple question for anyone given another chance. When he was reborn as Obito, the priceless connections he had formed throughout the elemental nations, not just in Konoha, vanished. Madara's wisdom and the harshness of reality itself were crushing his ninja way, which he acquired from speaking with Haku so long ago. Obito's innocent demeanor was gradually contaminating his own, Naruto, personality, which had been greatly impacted by Sasuke's sacrifice and the Fifth Shinobi World War in recent years. The time-traveling shinobi genuinely thought that he would no longer be able to call himself Uzumaki Naruto in a few years. What the Uzu-turned Uchiha found more upsetting, however, was what lay ahead for him. Was there any assurance that the new connections he would form in this new dimension would last until his death? After he dies in this world, he might be resurrected with Edo Tensei, impure world reincarnation, or given another chance to live in a completely different dimension by this world's Rakudo Sennin. Being an immortal dimensional traveler, he might be cursed to live forever with the mountain of corpses of his former lovers and friends that only he could see. He was more frightened of that than of Madara's boundless power on the battlefield. His strong relationship with Tsunami filled the aching emptiness in his empty heart and gave him a feeling of security and direction. With their calming songs of peace, happiness, and companionship, the civilians he lived with offered Naruto a lovely future. For this reason, Naruto found it hard to accept that he would never be the same after Tsunami's unexpected death. When Hanabi passed away, his blossoming romance was abruptly ended, and he has yet to fully come to terms with the loss. What would happen, then, if he fell madly in love with the former farmer and she also passed away? Furthermore, What would happen if he were compelled to witness the fragile ties of love being violently broken repeatedly for all of eternity? Naruto had nothing to say. Although he was aware that suppressing his feelings was unhealthy, he knew that he could not face his demons today. His eyes sucked out his expressive feelings, leaving behind a barren land of blackness as he saw the world in slow motion, and he felt all the emotions evaporate as he activated his red eyes. It took him what seemed like hours to relax and put his fears behind him, but it was only minutes. The Sharingan's red eyes stared stoically back at him when he turned his attention back to the mirror, replacing the blue eyes that had once been filled with joy. The lucid tears that remained of the emotions that threatened to engulf him in their sinful embrace were wiped away by him with a tissue. Using his Uchiha persona, which was based on his rival and close friend, he made himself control his emotions. He checked his appearance one last time to make sure he was ready for Tsunami. Appearance. Verify. Feelings. Under control. Come on. He waited patiently for his other half in front of his house before jumping out the window, as all good ninjas do. Naruto found himself in a dilemma after waiting outside for a few minutes. Shall I inform Tsunami-chan that I have a fiancé now? On the one hand, having a relationship with another woman won't help at all, and honesty is crucial in any relationship. Conversely, though, I don't want to spoil what should be a fun night out for us both. Oh no. How in the world did the elders choose to marry me now? Before, they never paid attention to me unless I got rewarded for tricking the Hyuga. Why now, then? I don't have any particular ancestry, and I'm fairly certain that the Mangekyo Sharingan skills aren't inherited. Sigh. I still haven't had a chance to discuss our predicament with Seiko-san. Why is my life so incredibly difficult? Naruto was absorbed in his concerns when the door slammed open with a creak. He was met with a beautiful sight that instantly put an end to all of his prior concerns. By no means was the person who approached him a goddess. Only Hanabi, with her exotic eyes and slender figure, was allowed to occupy that space. However, when Naruto greedily absorbed the image of the woman he had saved a month prior, a wave of instinctive desire swept through him. Tsunami wore a light pink yukata adorned with cherry blossoms, which accentuated her attractive figure and contrasted beautifully with her pale skin. He could already see that Tsunami was much healthier as a result of the blank check he gave her for food, both in terms of her ample figure and the healthy red flush that dotted her cheeks. Or perhaps she's embarrassed. To himself the shinobi mused. In many aspects, she is similar to Hinata-chan, but in other aspects, she is different. Her black eyes were brimming with joy, and her gorgeous blue hair had taken on an alluring sheen. She was simply breathtaking. The former Uzumaki experienced a moment of masculine pride because he was the fortunate recipient of a woman who was attractive on the inside as well as the outside. Despite the many butterflies in his stomach, he smiled disarmingly as he walked confidently toward his companion. He calmly remarked, "You look very beautiful, Tsunami-chan." His tone was tinged with a hint of unbridled desire. The weight of his praise caused his date's self-assured manner to crumble before Naruto. Her entire face turned red from a noticeable blush, and she looked down in embarrassment. They were both standing awkwardly in front of the house, and there was an awkward silence that pervaded the air. Our socially awkward protagonist was going over his notes in his head, trying to figure out what went wrong, but Tsunami was frozen in place, remembering clearly Obito's ogling face. Every time she left the Uchiha district to go grocery shopping, she was greeted by a sizable contingent of civilians and even a few shinobi, proving to her that she was already attractive. But instead of feeling repulsed whenever inebriated men openly mocked her, which reminded her of the horrible times she spent with the bandits, she felt empowered and thrilled that she could so easily get her savior's full attention. She wasn't sure whether her power over Obito should make her feel proud or afraid. In the Konohan community, he was well known for his generosity and empathy toward the elderly and young. In addition, if the rumors she had heard from the women at the fish market were accurate, he was a strong and attractive shinobi. However, she was aware that she would make sure to win his affection. She was going to ensure that whoever had hugged Obito would never be able to enter their lives again. Their ideal future, if she had anything to say about it, was waiting for them. She was aware that her father, Suzuki Tazuna, would criticize her for moving her relationship with Obito so quickly if he were present. However, she defended it by saying that all the other harpies, who were obviously interested in Obito, knew about her claim. She broke the awkward stalemate by giving Obito a tight hug, feeling suddenly emboldened. She tried to ignore the attention the couple was receiving and paused to smell his soothing aroma of maple trees. She stammered when she saw the inquisitive look in Obito's eyes as she looked up to look at his face. She buried her face back into his muscular chest in mild embarrassment after saying, "Why don't you Look versus. Very Han. Handsome. If I can't even give him a compliment without stuttering, how am I supposed to tell him I love him? It seems so simple because of all those romance books and fairy tales. She groaned to herself, Tsunami. The compliment was met with a rare, Naruto, grin from Naruto. He asked her in a whisper, ready? Without turning to face him, she nodded her head in his chest and stepped back. As the sun was setting and the weather was still warm, Naruto gently took hold of Tsunami's right hand and the two of them strolled slowly in the direction of Ramen Ichiraku. It was an interesting experience to walk hand in hand with Tsunami, because it was so uncommon to see a Uchiha holding hands with someone who wasn't Uchiha in public. He was getting a lot of obvious looks of disbelief from onlookers. Naruto scowled a little at all the unwelcome attention. Receiving all of this attention, especially on their first date, was really annoying, even though it wasn't oppressive in the slightest. He wanted to shunshin to the ramen stall badly, but he was unsure of how Tsunami, or any civilian, for that matter, would respond to such a sudden change in speed. Suddenly, a very familiar and comfortable feeling surrounded his left arm. He turned to face the former farmer, who was staring at the road as she approached him and modestly put his arm to her chest. When Naruto noticed that Tsunami appeared uneasy with all the attention, he scowled. This attention was clearly not aiding her in her recovery from the traumatic experience. So he went off, glaring at the people who were staring at him with his Sharingan. He imitated Sasuke's trademark glare that sent people reeling in terror with a slight head tilt, a strapped, emotionless frown, and plenty of the inherited Uchiha arrogance. As it ought to be. His mind rightfully boasted before he became aware of his thoughts. Why had I just considered that? Does it stem from the vulnerability of possessing the passive senjutsu ability? I believe that my overly pessimistic thoughts were a result of my absorption of the elder's negative sentiments and my distaste for Danzo. I shouldn't be having any issues anymore because the people aren't acting in a negative way. Where is Ero? Sennin, I wonder? I have to find him quickly. Naruto was brought back to reality by the woman on his arm whispering softly, "Thank you for frightening away all those harpies," she added to herself. As they made their way through the dwindling crowd to locate the stall, Naruto muttered absently, "HN." The two reached a clearing with the cherished Ramen Ichiraku a minute later. Naruto pulled the flap quickly and motioned for Tsunami to select one of the two seats that were fortunately adjacent to each other, grinning at the prospect of stuffing his stomach with the divine food. He followed her, and a wave of noblista swept over him. He remembered the stall exactly as it had been before Nagato destroyed Konoha. It was a modest, quiet restaurant that was committed to making sure its patrons enjoyed their inexpensive, delectable food. He took a seat on the wooden stool and silently breathed in the mouthwatering scent of his favorite noodles. Behind the counter, a black-haired man in a white chef's uniform stood and said, "Welcome to Ramen Ichiraku. What can I get for you today?" as he handled some noodles with skill. Naruto watched the younger Tucci and remarked, "I'll take a shoyu ramen, soy sauce ramen. With extra chashu, sliced barbecued pork." Happiness swept over him when he realized that the young man who had helped him get through the difficult times of his previous life as a shinobi didn't seem all that different in this new dimension. Simply more young. The thought made him shiver without realizing it. After giving a nod, Tucci turned to face his friend, "And what will you have, miss?" While she was busy looking under the table for Naruto's hand, she said to Tucci, "A miso ramen." Sensing the hand dancing close to him, he swallowed the tiny, delicate limb. Both of them relished the warmth and physical comfort that their companion offered. Gotcha. A shoyu with chashu and a miso coming right up for the lovely couple. Naruto turned his head to take in all the details of the familiar delicate stall, causing Tsunami's face to flush once more. Everything was exactly as he remembered it. The red countertop, the black stain above the stove, and the old wooden boards. He grinned as he glanced around at the different patrons seated at the tabletop, contentedly consuming their meals. It was the ideal moment. He only needed to share a taste of the food of the gods with a loved one. Right now, he couldn't give a damn about all the drama and issues he was dealing with. The world abruptly froze before the entire world grayscaled into drab shades of gray when his eyes locked with the person seated to his left. Is there ever a break for me? As he placed himself between the stranger and Tsunami and covertly armed himself with a hidden kunai, Naruto pondered absently. Reflexively, he used his dojutsu to cautiously face the man he continued to lock eyes with, the only other person who wasn't gray. Impressive, no? My sensei told me the concept, but it took 2 years to replicate the effects and another 3 to it into a viable jutsu. But your clan can easily unlock this jutsu and use it devastatingly at its inception. I believe your clan calls this genjutsu Tsukuyomi, Moon Reader. Who are you? Naruto asked, still giving the sitting figure a suspicious look. The man's appearance subtly changed from that of an ordinary citizen to that of a well-known black shinobi. I am the leader of the elite Spec Ops Anbu branch Hokage for the duration of this war. In charge of overseeing wetwork and intelligence operations. You most likely know the group by its epithet, Root. He said, you are, Shimura Danzo, with caution. Correct, boy. Congratulations on being accepted to Root. Come, sit down. I won't take too much of your time. In spite of his stoic manner, the Konoha elder gazed at the Uchiha, whom he knew was taken by surprise, without showing any emotion. And the Konoha elder enjoyed catching that kind of prey. 010886 is the identification number of Uchiha Obito. His grandmother, who was his guardian, passed away 4 months ago while she was sleeping, and both of his parents perished in the Second Shinobi War. He is the first person in his generation to be regarded as an A rank, even by Hiruzen himself, surpassing Hitaki Kakashi's remarkable progress, even though he graduated at the age of 9 as the lowest ranked student in his graduating class. Hobbies include pulling practical jokes that show unmatched wit and resourcefulness for a person of his age, but ironically, he follows his female teammate Rin Nohara like a puppy in love and fails miserably in his attempts to win her over. But when he looked at the boy himself, he scowled in his mind. The person standing in front of him did not resemble the files that his academic and team instructors had recommended. The boy's extreme persona with the Suzuki Tsunami was the clearest sign that the reports about this Uchiha were inaccurate. In contrast to his behavior with his female teammate, he acted like a mature gentleman instead of a clumsy, socially awkward idiot. After the Mangekyo Sharingan was unlocked, there was also a significant shift in personality. Danzo was prepared for the emotional baggage, but he was not prepared for the boy's dramatic increase in skill. Creating an unidentified weapon of some kind, practicing D and C rank elemental jutsus from all 5 elements, and quickly moving from traditional Uchiha taijutsu to a blend of taijutsu styles that incorporate elements of all the great villages' standard taijutsu, if intelligence's observations are to be believed. It appeared as though Obito's body had been worn by a more seasoned and well-traveled shinobi. However, the notion was absurd. Only the Yamanaka were able to do so, and their mind-bending methods were strictly regulated. They haven't had a prodigy in many generations. Danzo quickly generated a number of theories, but he ultimately settled on the most logical one. The boy was a hidden gem among gems. A boy who, by assuming the persona of a foolish and inept boy, demonstrated unmatched maturity. The elder had no clear, specific ideas as to why he did this, but Danzo could see the boy's level of intelligence and resourcefulness. Before the rest of his generation, he had a shinobi mindset. All he needed was time for his body's muscles and chakra coils to fully develop. Danzo wanted to solve the intriguing intrinsic puzzle of the Uchiha, but he was too busy to play with his food and dissect it piece by piece. The boy had a glaring weakness because he was unable to conceal his obvious feelings of love and lust for that immigrant civilian, even though he was still very suspicious and waiting for the other shoe to drop. However, he wouldn't create needless commotion if the boy demonstrated his loyalty. Internal dissidents who were dissatisfied with the current government were already posing a threat of insurrection in Konoha. On the list of properties, he had very little reason to suspect Obito. Keep your enemies close, but your friends close, as Tobirama Sensei used to say. And you have my undying attention, Uchiha. However, Danzo never allowed his thoughts to show. He gently laid a wrapped scroll on the table after taking it out. Here's the mission details for your first mission. Our Anbu branch is currently suffering from logistical deficiencies and a lack of manpower, so the handling and receiving of mission details will be very different from what you are used to until we can fix it. All the details are in the scroll. As he sat down, Naruto asked courteously but angrily, "Do I need to do it now?" "No, you are expected to leave unnoticed tomorrow night at 2310 by the exit located in Quadrant 5 Section 3. Any questions?" The older gentleman replied monotonously. As he attempted to assess the man who wasn't what the former Uzumaki had anticipated him to be, Naruto said coolly, "No sir." The time traveler was tempted to use senjutsu to determine the elder's strategy, but he was determined not to ruin his already damaged personality. For him, life was doing a fantastic job of that. The man put some ryo by his bowl for the meal and said, "Then I will take my leave." The man quietly left to find the next accepted applicant, saying, "Enjoy your date." However, Obito behaves in a very different way than the typical Uchiha. He clearly displays a poor imitation of one of the Mangekyo Sharingan's jutsus, but there are no obvious signs of offense or arrogance. "Yes, Uchiha. You have my full attention. You are an outlier, an irregularity without documentation. However, you have the capacity to be so much more for Konoha. Naruto saw the world abruptly unfreeze once more and color return as he watched Danzo leave the stall. That's the man who wants my students, so let's sing Shinobi no Yami, the darkness of Shinobi, and dance. I can always bury you in a ditch somewhere if you end up being a problematic dance partner. Naruto grinned before flinching briefly as a sharp migraine began to pierce his skull. He brought his hand to stroke his head, drawing the affectionate gaze of his companion. She muttered, "Are you all right?" with concern, forgetting her embarrassment. The former farmer frowned in concern as Naruto sheepishly said, "It's all right. I just had a small headache. I'm fine now. I think I'm just hungry, so tell me about your family." "Well, my Oto-san, Tazuna, is a construction worker who dreams about building beautiful wooden monuments and," Tsunami was smiling. Naruto frowned inwardly as he grinned at the woman who was chatting joyfully. He made an effort to pay close attention to Tsunami because he truly wanted to enjoy the date, but his thoughts kept returning to Danzo. He was unable to concentrate on taking the time to appreciate each bite, even though the food of the gods was delivering its mouth-watering yet explosive flavors. Am I really this mad at Danzo for stealing my students? I can't allow Obito's original personality to affect my thoughts this much. Since I lived longer and had a stronger chakra than him, there is no way that he could have more control over the yin aspects of our chakra. Even though it's not possible yet, I've become more sentimental since coming here. Perhaps a trait I inherited from the Uchiha? He tried his best to be a focused companion despite his mind wandering. Naruto found her voice to be rather calming, even though many men would roll their eyes at the idea of spending their days listening to a woman yammer. He felt human again, and he realized how much he missed being able to interact with people without having to worry about stray jutsus or artillery fire blowing him up. Additionally, Tsunami appeared to be content, which was a plus in his opinion. As Naruto alternated between listening to Tsunami discuss her life in AIM and surreptitiously observing the potential hidden route operatives, time passed by swiftly. It wouldn't be surprising to him if the elder had ears all over Konoha and used this conversation as leverage later. After finishing his third bowl of the delectable broth, Naruto declared, "It's delicious." Living in the trenches forced him to adjust to eating a low-calorie diet, even though as a child he used to eat a lot more. "Thank you for the meal." Tsunami echoed softly in agreement, "Thank you." Tenchi gave the two a familiar smile, which Naruto discovered was the cook's way of showing pride in pleasing another customer or customers. "You're welcome." The two silently strolled home hand in hand after Naruto set some ryo, with a generous tip, on the table. The two had no trouble returning to the Uchiha compound because there were fewer people walking at night. Naruto gestured silently for Tsunami to enter first and opened the door for her. As he held the door open, he noticed a familiar folder idly resting on the table where he had left it. He was stunned as he gazed at the documents that the elders had provided. He quickly recovered after realizing that he had not disclosed his financial situation to Tsunami. He turned around and started to say something. When he felt a familiar set of velvety, smooth lips meet his own, his thoughts came to a halt. But unlike the last time, he jerked away from the kiss, regardless of how enticing it was to partake in their immoral embrace. Something flashed through Tsunami's eyes, but Naruto couldn't make out what it was because it happened so quickly. His gaze was drawn to the folder on the table, and he felt embarrassed, ashamed, and most of all, horrified for forgetting. His gaze never left the folder as he whispered, I'm sorry Tsunami. I see. I can't break the clan's rules." He explained bitterly, I was assigned A.F. Finance by the clan today. I can't continue this relationship anymore, oblivious to the tumultuous emotions sweeping through Tsunami. Slowly, with every ounce of willpower he possessed, he turned to face his companion. Black orbs filled with empty hollowness replaced the joy and happiness he had seen in her eyes just minutes before. She immediately ran upstairs before he could say another word. Naruto swore to himself, fuck. Something prevented him from following her, even though he really wanted to. There were many ways he could have made the news more easily, but it wasn't his fault that he married a finance when he knew he had something with Tsunami. And I did it in the worst way imaginable. He sat on the stony gravel and thought about all the different ways he could make this relationship better. Coming up with a few ideas would have been simple, but he was hindered by a severe migraine. Naruto was accustomed to pain because he was a shinobi. However, the pain felt different, as though someone were drilling tunnels in his head at random. His physical and mental exhaustion from training and suppressing his inner demons didn't help either. Ultimately, all he produced was frustration and a curse at his own incapacity. Naruto, exhausted and broken, just made 12 Kage Bunshin shadow clones to prevent Tsunami from attempting suicide. With the intention of getting some much needed rest after the events of the day, he made his way to his room. The door to Tsunami's room was closed when he turned to look farther down the corridor. Somehow, he forced himself to walk a few paces to her door and held up a hand to knock. But before he could do so, he heard the faint sounds of crying and froze. For minutes, Naruto gazed at the wooden door with wide eyes, as though he could see the dejected creature inside in mourning. As he listened to the sobbing sounds, his hand went limp. The Tem would sacrifice himself for the clan, just like his brother, so I must do the same as a Uchiha, everything for the Uchiha. I am Uchiha Naruto Obito. He would stop Madara, he would bring peace to the world. Sasuke would be proud of me. Silently, he retreated and shut his own door. Then, enjoying the delightful sound of the vase breaking, he hurled a kunai angrily at the potted plant that was seated in the corner. I'll always be Uzumaki Naruto, the Dobi, a failure at being a shinobi and now a failure at relationships. Who am I kidding? I'll never be as good as Sasuke. The sweet embrace of sleep drew him away from the harsh reality of disappointment as he slowly sank into his futon. In the adjacent room, Tsunami's eyes were filled with tears as they stared vacantly at a photo of them both grinning at the dinner table. She could never have hated Obito. He provided her with an amazing place to stay, saved her life, tried his best to meet all of her needs, and much more. She was aware that she would never be able to pay the shinobi back for all of his efforts to cheer her up. She would stop at nothing to ensure his happiness because of this. Her soul and body belonged to him alone. Although some might contend that she was only using him to protect herself, Tsunami felt that her love was far more profound than most. While other relationships would break down and disintegrate over time, theirs would endure. The world was wrong, not her. Her love was now in jeopardy. She used every bit of her cunning to slip downstairs without waking Obito. She saw the folder there, the catalyst at which Obito gazed before spilling the beans. When she opened it out of curiosity, a picture of a kunoichi appeared. Uchiha Seiko. So this might be the bitch hugging my man yesterday. She looked at a stunning woman in the photo, and for a moment a twisted smile came to her face. She kept reading the Uchiha's biography at short speed. The report presented a terrible image of a perfect Yamato Nadeshiko in the home and a strong and graceful shinobi on the battlefield. For any shinobi, she would make the ideal wife. I believe I need to improve. The woman's physical possessions and her extremely strong bond with Obito were the only things Tsunami knew she had beaten. Any other civilian would soon give in to the pressure of a powerful and prestigious clan if they were in her shoes. She wasn't your typical civilian, though. She was a farmer who voluntarily left AIM and walked through fields smeared with blood in search of a better life. She had experienced adversity before her birth. She spent her entire life in the muddy soil, surrounded by a tyrannical ruler and gloomy weather that never stopped raining. Was she going to give up now that she was so close to her goal and the sun was finally shining and the future was bright? Absolutely not. She was not going to let him go easily. It's on, bitch.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.